Okay. And just a little bit about the process today. We're going to be, each board member is going to be asking some questions. We're going to alternate. As you know, Dr. Richardson had passed away, and that's why we're in this process for a superintendent candidate. And a little bit about our district. We're currently sitting at about 850 students. Obviously, you know, Pelican Rapids is a community of about 2,500 people. And pretty proud of the accomplishments of what's gone on with the staff and in the building and our students. So I think, do you have any questions before we get started?
No, I don't. I just wanted to again send you guys my deepest condolences for the loss of Dr. Ed Richardson. I knew him personally as well, and I know the school, the community, and a bunch of us lost a great guy, and I'm sorry you have to go through this process, and I wish you the best, and I'm thankful to have a chance today.
Thank you. And Brittany, do you want to start with the first question?
Did we want to introduce ourselves first?
Yeah, let's do that. Obviously, you know me, John Carter, board chair. Mike Forsgren.
Yeah.
Vice chair. And next, start with Ann.
Excuse me, Ann Peterson, clerk. Hey, Rob.
Good morning.
Brenda. Not on mute, Brenda.
Brenda Olson.
Greg.
Greg Larson.
Brittany.
Brittany Dawkins.
Okay. And Derek and Brian, you want to introduce yourselves, even though you won't be asking questions?
Brian Korf, high school principal.
Derek Nelson, elementary principal activities director. Good morning, Mr. Nudell.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So I'm understanding, being I don't have the video here, that I got 6 board members and 2 administrators. Is that correct?
Oh, you got a couple more. Well, Rudy, you want to introduce yourself?
Rudy Martinez, finance director. Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Rudy. Good morning, Rudy.
And Jerry Ness, interim superintendent.
Morning, Jerry.
Morning, Mr. Nudell.
Okay, I think we'll start with questions here. Brittany, you're first up.
Yep. Okay, Rob, briefly share your work experience in education, including your long-term career objectives, and why did you choose Pelican Rapids as a potential employer?
Well, first of all, I graduated from a small town in North Dakota, went into education, graduated from Moorhead State University back in '91, and then became a school teacher. I was an elementary teacher for 7 years, and in about my 5th year, I taught 2 years in Arizona and 5 in Forest Lake, and about my 5th year of teaching, my principal came and said, you know what, you should, you do a great job with students in the classroom, you should consider the principalship. So he helped guide me to go get my master's and my elementary principal license. So after my 7 years, I went and became an elementary principal, led some buildings in Barnesville, in Buffalo, and then in Dassel, Cokato. And my wife's stepdad passed away, so we had to get back closer to home to help family. And I knew that if I wanted to pursue the superintendency, I wanted to get some high school experience as well. So after being a elementary principal for 12 years, I became the high school principal at Frazee for 6 years, and then went after the superintendency. I was asked to apply at Norman County East back in about April of 2016, and was offered the job there. And I was really reluctant because I was still living in Frazee. I had my daughter who was going to be a junior in school, and I didn't want to up and move my family, so I kind of declined the offer. The board called me back and said, no, we'd really like you to be here, even though, you know, you're not going to live here, and that sort of thing. And I just think being involved in the community is such a big thing. So I've been a elementary principal and superintendent at Norman County East for the last 4 years. Why did I get into education? Because I love kids and I love working with people. I first started my college career going into accounting, and I was in that program for about 1.5 years. And I thought, I can't sit behind a desk all day. I want to work with kids. I love kids. I want to be involved. So then made the jump into education and found something I really, really loved. And I'm, I don't know, I work hard. I enjoy people. I love the role of the superintendency and working and guiding and leading a district. Why Pelican Rapids? I live on Lake Lida. We moved here full time about 2.5 years ago when we sold our house in Frazee. I haven't applied anywhere else this year, and I don't plan to. I have a great job where I'm at Norman County East. I have a supportive board, supportive community. Why Pelican? I want to be involved in the community. I'm here. I'm a resident here. You guys take great pride in your school. Some of you have seen me. I referee some basketball games. Involved just in the community, and I love it here, and I want to help make a difference. And I think I meet a lot of the goals. I looked at your district website and looked at the goals that you guys have as a board and a school district, and I think I check off all 4 of those right down the line. So why Pelican Rapids? It's the only place I want to be besides where I'm at right now at Norman County East. I live here, and I want to work here.
Greg, unmute yourself, please.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Mr. Nudell, Greg Larson here, school board member. This is a second question. It's a 2-part question. What strengths do you have that makes you a strong candidate as superintendent for the Pelican Rapids School District?
What strengths do I have? Well, I hope there's a couple. It's one of those things that when you're Minnesota nice, you try not to brag, but if you don't share the good things about yourself, nobody else is going to. I think what I bring to the district is I've got 4 years of superintendent experience where our general fund has increased each and every year. We're in a good financial spot. I've got teaching experience. I've got elementary principal experience. I've got high school principal experience. I think I work collaboratively with my staff, whether it's teachers or custodians or cooks or administration. I got a great board I work with and have fostered good working relationships there. So I think my experience and dedication is one of my strengths, and I'm vested in this community. I live here and I want to be here.
Thanks, Mr. Nudell. The follow-up question to that is, what improvements are you working on to be a better superintendent?
I think each and every day you work to try to do things better. One thing I would like to do better, and it's my own choice that I can't right now, it's really hard to be involved in the Norman County East, which is Gary and Twin Valley communities when I live 55 miles away. I realize that's my own choice, but if I were to say there's one thing I wish I could adjust or work with, would be the community involvement. I know when I was principal at Frazee and when I was in Buffalo, I was on church councils, I was booster club president, member of the Lions, just did a lot of community involvement things. And, as I was reflecting with my wife last night, thinking about some of the questions you guys might ask me today, that's something that really resonated with her and I. She goes, "You really miss that community engagement, being involved, don't you?" And I said, I do. And I'm involved where I'm at, but it's just a little different level when you live 55 minutes away and you jump in the car to come home every day. I feel I'm somewhat involved with the Pelican community, and I want some more involvement as being the school leader. Shop in town, bank in town, go to the grocery store, get my oil changed in town, buy gas in town, all those sort of things. That feels more like home to me. So if there's one thing I could improve upon, it would be that meaning the community involvement. And that will happen a lot more when you live in the community where you work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brenda Olson here. How would you describe your management style, including how you determine what kind of decisions or responsibilities are delegated to others?
Well, I think my management style is one I like to listen first. You know, I was thinking about what is a guy doing in your first 100 or 120 days on the job in Pelican Rapids, and I think the most important thing is just to sit back and listen and assess and learn why things are happening the way they are. I don't have a hidden agenda. I want to be there and be a good colleague and a coworker with your administrative team, with your teaching staff, and work with you closely as a board and the community. So I think my management style is you find good people and you surround yourself with good people and you empower them and support them. You know, I'm not going to have all the answers. I never claim that I do or that I will, but I know where to find the answers. And I think if you hire good people, support good people, and listen and guide there, yeah, it'll work well. I think if they understand where I'm coming from with some of my thoughts and I understand where they're at, I think we'll work really, really well together. You know, sometimes the role of the superintendent, though, you just got to step back and you have to make a hard decision, and that's kind of what you're paid to do sometimes. And I'm not afraid to make the hard decision, but it's something that I want to make sure I do my research and do what's best for kids and do what's best for the district. But I look back each and every decision, I try to think, how's it going to impact our students? And if it's going to benefit students and work with students and give them the best outcome, then we'll make that decision, whether it's easy or not, and then try to find the best solution.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Rob, John here. In light of Dr. Richardson's passing, how do you keep all staff involved and motivated while keeping morale high? And what steps do you take to achieve this?
Well, I think morale is a big deal, and it starts from each of us individually. It starts at the building with the leadership of Mr. Nelson and Mr. Korf. And I think, you know, being a visible leader. One of the things I'd like to do in my first 100 or 120 days on the job is get the chance to meet with each team, sit down and meet with the cooks, the custodians, teachers, administration, just sit back and listen, and have them get to know me and me get to know them as a real person. I like people. I like to chat with people. I like to get to know people and just kind of see where they're coming from. Something I've done in the last few districts I've worked in, whether it's Frazee or Norman County East, is the first week of school, I jump on a bus route with each of the bus drivers and ride either a morning or afternoon route with them to see where our kids are coming from. Just to show that we know that bus drivers have a very important job, and they start and end our students' day when picking them up or dropping them off at the door. So I think listening to people, being visible, being in the classroom. And I've worked with a lot of fantastic educators. I've never claimed to be the best teacher in the world, but I know what good teaching looks like. And I think being visible, getting to know them, being visible at activities, school functions, at church, seeing them in the grocery store, at the gas station, but taking time to get to know people and see them. And I know Dr. Ed did a fantastic job with that. And I know there's some really big shoes to fill. But I do think I have a kind, caring personality. At least I would like to think I do, and would love to build relationships with all of the staff and the students.
Okay, thank you.
Rob, Mike here. Involvement and visibility in both school district and community is important to the success of the superintendent and district. Provide us with examples of how you will be involved, visible, approachable, and accessible in our school district community.
You know, Mike, as I said a little earlier, I'm kind of talking out of two sides of my mouth here, where I believe it's really important to be a school leader and be in that community, yet I'm not doing it where I'm at. But I was straight up with the school board up front, and I encourage you to contact any of those 6, and they will tell you my involvement there is about as much as it can be from living from a distance. And they knew that I was straight up with them ahead of time. What does it look like? It looks like going to church on Sunday morning. It looks like buying groceries at the grocery store. It looks like being involved in the Lions or any social groups or community groups there. Being visible at school activities, just being a part of the community. And obviously the school district's one of the biggest employers in town. and kind of being the leader of the district, you're going to be viewed as such. So it's being there, it's being visible, and that's one thing I'm really thirsty for is to have that community involvement again from a school point of view. Volunteering, helping out, just all of those sort of things, and it's just being out and about and in the community. Got several friends here, and some people that Gary Hovland down the street drive bus together, or he drives bus, and we were just chatting about that the other day about how important that is for a school district, and that's something I know what that looks like, and it's just being out, getting your hands dirty, and being involved. I don't know what to say other than that. It's just doing it, and all of those different, like I'm kind of repeating myself here, but all of those different groups and supportive of buying our prescriptions at the Pelican drugstore and banking in town and that sort of thing, I guess, Mike.
Thank you.
Hey, Rob, this is Ann. Our district goals are community engagement, educate the whole child, increase student enrollment, and sound and transparent financial practices. How would you implement and communicate the goals to the board, staff, and community? Please specify the steps you would take.
Well, I think the first one, community engagement, that's something important for your superintendent, but it's the entire student body and the staff being involved in the community and playing active roles there with that. Educating the whole child, obviously, differentiating instruction with the different ethnicities and cultures you have in Pelican Rapids, or that we have in Pelican Rapids. It's important that we educate each and every child, and some are going to go on and go to a 4-year school. Some are going to go into the workforce. Some are going to go to a tech school. And I think currently where I'm at Norman County East, we started a career and technical ed program where students are able to get a certificate, get some work experience, and go right into the workforce when they get done with school or graduate from Norman County East. So I think educating the whole child and trying to prepare all kids for after graduation, whether they want to go to a 4-year school, a 2-year school, or whatever that would be. Increasing student enrollment. Every place wants to not have declining enrollment. Every place wants their student growth to have a slow, steady student growth. Where I'm at right now, we went through and we closed our elementary school in Gary, and everybody was projecting we were going to lose students over that as we consolidated our K-6 building in Gary with our 7-12 building in Twin Valley. So now we're all under one roof in Twin Valley. I personally made a bunch of phone calls. Our school board went out and made a bunch of phone calls and visits with families that were open enrolled out of our district. And we've attracted 4 kids. So instead of being down 11 kids, we're up 4, which is a net gain in my mind of 15 students, which is good for our fund balance. It's good for the reputation of our school, and making those personal touches or personal contacts was really, really important. So, the enrollment piece is something big, and how you can celebrate your district and all of the good things that you're doing. I know you guys put out I believe it's a quarterly newsletter that comes out through the paper. Through things in your website, you can advertise the good things that are going on, and through word of mouth with your staff and students. And then the sound and transparent financial practices. Right? Each of the last 4 years, the district I've worked with as the superintendent, we finished in the black. Our fund balance is slowly increasing. We've got about 30% of our general fund, sitting in our account. So financially, we're sitting in a good spot. We always try to find that balance as we generate the funds on the students that we have. We want to make sure we're doing a good job spending the money that we generate from those students, spend it on those students. But we also want to be prepared, as we know the state's coming out here this year, where it's going to be a little tougher go financially, where we're probably going to have to either borrow money or steal some from our rainy day fund or our general fund. And I know right now the district I work with, we're set up well to do that. So I think the financial piece is working with the board, letting them know where we're at financially, looking monthly at reports, but also in between meetings if we have issues or concerns, working with my finance and personnel committee.
Brittany again here. Number 7, school finance is important to the success of the district. What is your experience and role in your current assignment in regards to public school finance, budget development, and long-term planning for fiscal stability?
Well, first of all, I'm very fortunate. I got a great business manager where I'm at, and I understand through my research you've got a Rudy that's doing a bang-up job with you. I think the business manager job is the most important job and one of the most important employees I would work with. You know, sitting and looking at budgets, we look at long-range budget forecasts from the legislature, from the federal government. We look at those, you know, all those different funds from Title I and special ed and all that sort of stuff. We look at our expenditures versus our revenues, the number of students that we're going to project each and every year that'll be in our district. Every year I operate very conservatively. If we're going to have 250 kids walk through our door in the fall, I plan that we have 235 to 240, just so there's no big surprises for us, so we're not in a financial pickle, I guess. Look at what funds are needed to support our students. The reason we're in this world of education is to support students and to better them and give them the best education we can. So when it's time to allocate resources, we look at how we can meet the needs of our students. And look long-term, we have to look down the road. Do we need to buy a new school vehicle? Do we have a referendum or a bond issue coming up? Do we have the need for more staff? How can we be wiser with our money? As we consolidated the 2 buildings where I'm at now, we've went through and been able to do some cost containments and some savings that way through attrition. When some employees retire, we just haven't filled their jobs. Just look at personnel, because we know that personnel is 75 to 80% of our budget. If you're looking for somebody that knows the ins and outs of Minnesota school finance, I'm certainly not that person. I'm a very conservative person. I work well with our business manager. I've worked with Dr. Bruce Jensen through the Northwest Service Co-op and been through his school finance class a couple different times. I feel I've done a great job budgeting for our school. If you talk to any of our board members, they will, I believe, support that as well. So, you know, looking long range, looking current, looking what's going to affect kids. Try to spend your money wisely. I've written some grants, offered this career and technical ed program to better our students' chances of being successful after school. So I think the 4 years I've really learned a lot from my first year to the 4th year. But to say I have all the answers, if anybody tells you they have all the answers to school finance, they're feeding you a story in my mind. But I'm always learning and always trying to get better.
Thanks, Mr. Nudell. Greg Larson here again. When looking at your current district's MCA scores, describe an initiative in your current district for improvement.
Well, we went through and we looked at the number of students that were meeting proficiency and kind of exceeding and kind of blowing the top off the thing and doing a good job. And we had a pretty good percentage with that. But then we had a whole bunch that were just close to meeting the standards and partially proficient. So we really targeted those students and not the ones that were way at the bottom per se, but those that were really close to passing the MCA scores and where they were at there. We started an RTI process and hired a reading interventionist that works with reading and math. And her focus with the pairs that they work with and our teachers is working on basic skills for reading and math. We targeted our 2nd through 5th graders because we know those students were the ones that would be working on the MCA test for the elementary level, and tried to do some differentiated instruction there. We had them work in small groups. So every day at 10 o'clock, for example, we would have our classroom teacher, a para, our RTI interventionist, and our Title I teacher would take our 20 kids, divide those 20 kids up into 4 groups, and do some real individualized instruction, whether it was working on phonemic awareness, decoding skills, comprehension, anything like that in the area of reading. And we would also do the same with math. And we would do that 5 days a week. And then about every 3 or 4 weeks, we'd do a quick assessment use some of our Ames Web or our STAR testing, and kind of see where those students are. All of those groups with 4 or 5 or 6 kids in them were really fluid groups. So we, if some were working on different skills, every few weeks we would change up those groups and have them go from there. Our RTI teacher, Mrs. Flayton, she's the one that would go ahead and plan the activities and the lessons for that 20 minutes for those 4 adults that were doing the instruction. And so we could really get to the core of some of their weaknesses and help instruct them and do some differentiation that way. And, we were really hoping to see some results this year with the MCAs. But that's something I guess we'll have to wait till the fall. But as we've looked at our groups and we've used our Ames Web and our STAR testing, we've seen growth there, and through the NWEA testing as well.
Thank you.
Brenda Olson again. Pelican Rapids is a diverse school district. What is your experience working with diverse student populations and specifically the state's Achievement and Integration Program?
Well, my first 2 years teaching was in Parker, Arizona. And I had 3 job offers when I graduated from Morehead State. One was in West Fargo, where I student taught. One was in Illinois at a group home with juvenile delinquent kids providing some education. And another one was in Parker, Arizona, which was on a reservation. And about 40% or 45% of the students were Native American, at about 35% that were Hispanic, at about 5 to 10% that were African American, and the rest were Caucasian. So moving from small town North Dakota to Parker, Arizona was very eye-opening for me. I learned lots and built some great friendships. I know that being respectful of culture, embracing different cultures, celebrating those is vitally important. I think it's finding leaders within those cultures and through those different community groups, building a relationship with them and having a solid understanding of needs and tradition and all that stuff is very, very important. You spoke a little bit about the achievement and integration. When I was in Frazee, we worked with Pelican Rapids with our achievement and integration dollars. I know that's still happening with, I think you have 7 or 8 school districts that are part of your achievement and integration, like Hawley and Underwood and Frazee and up and down the line. I think Detroit Lakes you do some different things with. Where I'm at right now, we have achievement integration dollars because we're next door to Mahnomen-Waban district. So we do some things with those districts right now with our upper elementary and our middle school or junior high kids, where we've done some robotics activities that we pair and share with them. And one, it's about building relationships and having an understanding of different cultures, and it's been really, really good for our kids. The district where I'm at right now, we're 90% Caucasian or white, and that's, that's not always the real world. You get into the real world and there's lots of different cultures to celebrate and work with. And I know Pelican Rapids has that advantage of working with many different cultures, and I would welcome that opportunity. But I do have experience with achievement integration. I know we're always trying to recruit and hire and find teachers of different cultures, which is really hard to do. There's not a ton of them out there. So that's some of my experience.
Thank you.
This is really hard for you guys, I'm sure, too, just as it is for me to not understand and see somebody's body language and what they're talking about. And I really apologize for the lack of these technology skills. It's awkward on both ends, I'm sure. I know it is for me. So thanks for bearing with me.
This is John. The next question is, how do you foster a positive professional climate of mutual trust and respect among faculty, staff, and administration?
John, could you say the first part of that? How do you foster that? Is that what you said?
Correct. How do you foster a positive
Sure.
professional climate of mutual trust and respect among faculty, staff, and administration?
I think, again, it's being open, being honest, and being visible, having those very open conversations, being visible in the school, in the classroom, in the community, letting people know I'm a real person as well. It's kind of funny, whenever at Twin Valley, some days on my way home, I'll stop and grocery shop, and some of the kids will say, Mr. Nudell, what are you doing in the grocery store? You work at school. And it's just kind of fun to see the reaction sometimes of kids as they see you out and about. I think it's just the transparency of being visible, and you know, I know a couple of you school board members on a personal level, or have seen you and chatted with you, and I hope you view me as a person that's kind and caring and really wants what's best for kids in the community. I just think being visible, it's so easy just to get locked in the office and in your office and taking care of your own world sometimes, and working on budget and working on staffing and working on all these sort of things. But I watch good leaders and I try to model myself after that, and it's being out and being visible and trusting them. You know, you've got two great leaders right there, and Mr. Nelson and Mr. Korf, that I know are in this for the right reason, to work with their staff, but more importantly, they love kids. And I think for people to understand why I'm in education and why I want to make a difference, it's just being out and being who you are, and having those conversations, offering some feedback, giving them a pat on the back, walking into a classroom, doing a 3-minute walkthrough and leaving a teacher a note saying, hey, great job, you know, running this conversation or the dialogue through this lesson. It's just getting to know them, being out and building that trust. And that takes time, but it also takes transparency. And John, let me just reiterate one thing. That's throughout the district. I mean, I don't think anybody's job is more important than anybody else's, whether you're a business manager or a high school principal or a cook or a custodian or a para or the buildings and grounds person or whatever. I think everybody's got an important part to making the ship head the right direction and continue heading in that right direction. I think it's supporting those people and acknowledging them and respecting them.
Okay, thank you.
Heck, even being a board member is kind of important sometimes. Teasing, that's supposed to be funny.
We're chuckling.
Communication takes time and effort. What methods and platforms do you use to communicate to the board, admin team, staff, and community?
You know, Mike, I missed the first part of that. Could you help me out and repeat that again, please?
Yep, sure. Effective communication takes time and effort. What methods and platforms do you use to communicate to the board, admin team, staff, and community?
Well, I'll start first of all with the school board. You know, when I accepted the interview, when I applied and accepted the interview here at Pelican Rapids, each one of my board members got a personal phone call. I think sometimes a phone call is really important, or it was a face-to-face meeting. I went out to my board chair's office and sat down with him and let him know my thought process. So I think there's times you make that individual or face-to-face contact. There's also times with emails. Sometimes it can be one just on a Friday afternoon or a Monday morning. Here's what's coming up for this week, or here's what happened last week. You know, I want to hear what's the pulse of the community. Hopefully I have a pretty good sense of that I know what's going on within the community by being involved, but also the 6 board members are all going to have a little different feel too. So I want that two-way communication where if something's going well or something needs addressing, that you talk to me as much as I talk to you. But I want to spoon feed you as much information as I can before any board meeting, before any big decisions made, or things that are coming down the pipe, that sort of thing. As with the administration, you know, I look forward to having a close working relationship with your 2 administrators you have there, and Derek and Brian, whether it's weekly, monthly meetings, whether it's seeing them every Tuesday afternoon, being visible, being out in their building, helping and guiding them, but supporting them. Obviously, you've got 2 great leaders there, and however I can help and support them and kind of stay out of their way, that would be good too. There's times where people are going to have to be pushed to try to better themselves and step out of our comfort zone. And that can happen too, whether it's email or face-to-face or a written note. As for staff, you know, I'd love to sit in on some grade level or department meetings just to sit and listen, especially my first year there. There's things that I believe the Pelican Rapids district does very, very well. And one thing I think you do a bang-up job with is celebrating your school, celebrating the diversity, the pride in your school and your district. And I've thought that ever since I I moved back up this way and was in Frazee. I thought this place is just really proud of their school, and I want to be a part of that. So I think emails, face-to-face conversation, personal notes, those are how you communicate with people, and it's a sincere sort of thing. It's just not on Secretary's Day where your secretary gets a note and says, "Oh, great job." It's the transparency, it's the sincerity of just being a good person and communicating with them.
Thank you.
Hey, Rob, this is Ann. Do you encourage
Hi, Ann.
participation? I'm sorry, I'll start over. Do you encourage participation of employees in any district decisions? If so, what process do you use?
I think there's sometimes you have some discussion maybe at a staff meeting, or if it's part of the reading curriculum, you're revamping or doing some curriculum updates. You have reps from throughout the building there. Sometimes you use a district survey to gather input. Sometimes you pull certain people that it affects together and have some dialogue that way. Yes, do I include them in the process? Absolutely. I noticed in this process, as you're hiring a superintendent, I find it very heartwarming and encouraging that you're involving your community group, your administration, support staff, others on the interview process. That says a lot about the district, that it's important to get everybody's input. Ultimately, we know that the board is the decision maker, but the administrative team, not just your superintendent, but your administrative team and your superintendent make recommendations. I will make recommendations to the school board, try to give you as much input as the pros and cons to each decision. But yes, it's important to have the input from people and the staff. With that said, though, there's some times where as a superintendent, you just have to make a hard decision. And it's if you believe it's what's best for kids and you've got the input and the data to support that, I think you're in a great place. If you don't, you better rethink your decision a little bit and think what's best. So my answer is yes, you include staff with that and try to have them come along the way and understand your thought process. But you also want to really listen to their thoughts and ideas and what's best, because a lot of these people have a lot more experience and a lot of them are way better teachers or educators than I ever was.
Brittany again with number 14. How have you worked collaboratively with other agencies and businesses to create partnerships in your community, such as a community college, non-public schools, or government agencies?
Well, you know, Brittany, I'll speak a little bit about our career and technical ed piece. First of all, each of our elementary classrooms, kindergarten through 6th grade, we're a one-section school. We have a business that that helps sponsor us and do some activities, and it's not just about money. It's about, during homecoming week, we go up to Arvig and we decorate their windows, and our 1st grade team as students does that sort of thing. So we pair up with some businesses. They come in and teach and work with some of our students. Right now, our career and technical ed program, we have students that are trying to work on CPR and first aid to get that certification. So working with our ambulance and first responders crew, we've got people that come in and work with students and help get certification there. We've got a building trades class right now where some of our students are learning how to hang ductwork, how to do sheetrock and mudding and taping and do some electrical work. So we've got partnerships with our electricians and a local guy that does sheetrock and mud work. We've got some students that are looking at business and finance, and they're doing a couple hours a day up at the local bank to get there and learn some customer service, learn accounting and balancing and some basic accounting sort of things. We've got students that are taking college level courses. So we're working with some colleges with that so they can leave with some credits under their belt that way. With county agencies, we hired a county nurse that comes into our building 1 day a week to work with some health things and help teach our health class a little bit. And she's also our nurse that we have in our district 1 day a week. So working with the county, working with the colleges that way, working with local businesses. And it's a collaboration to educate our kids. Oftentimes people think, in my mind, people think that, well, you have a business partnership so you can get some money from the local Cenex or from the local supermarket or whatever. And that's not so much it. Even though the financial support is great, I think small town businesses get hit up a lot for money, and there's a lot of expectation there, but they can offer a lot more than just a financial contribution. They can have students come and doing some community hours where they learn how to stock shelves, or they learn some customer service, learn how to balance a checkbook, and just help educate our kids that way. So the business partnerships, I think, is really huge.
Mr. Nudell, Greg Larson here again. This next question has a couple parts. I'll read the first part of the question. Have you ever run a bond or levy referendum?
Yes, have I, as a superintendent? No, I have not. As a school leader, as a principal, a community member, yes, I have. When I was in Buffalo, we ran an operating referendum, and I also helped with 2 bond issues.
And then the follow-up to that, Mr. Nudell, was it a successful process?
Yes, it was a real big learning curve. Everyone was successful. The one in Buffalo failed the first time, and then we went back and we had to assess what went well and what didn't go well, and we did some community surveys. I know through Pelican Rapids, there was a struggle with getting one passed a couple years ago, your bond issue, but your operating one this fall. You guys did a fantastic job promoting that, informing the community, and building that support and rationale for the need for that. So I really believe that the transparency and informing the community and getting some buy-in from them, having listening sessions, not just informational sessions, but listening sessions so you can hear the questions and answer the questions that community has, and let them know the need for that is vitally important.
Mr. Nudell, then the final part of this question is, and you touched on this a bit, but what was your role and what did you learn from that experience?
Well, part of my role was I was doing my superintendent internship hours, and part of mine was getting out to different community groups and sharing with them the rationale and the importance of why we were doing this. And something I really learned is, we can sit here and give out all this information, but if you don't sit and listen and understand some of the questions or concerns, you're sometimes speaking to a wall. And I think people need to be heard, and you need to have a good idea, because oftentimes us in education, I shouldn't say oftentimes, but when we look to pass a bond or an operating referendum, we understand the importance, and we believe that the community really knows how important it is for us in the school, but it's vital for us to sell that to them, but it's also vital for us to listen to the community and see what their questions are and have an understanding there. So I really learned not so much giving information, but listening to some questions and answering those too.
Thank you.
Brenda here again. How would you conduct an assessment of the district's academic and extracurricular programs to determine if the needs of all student groups are being addressed?
Well, let's start a little bit with the academic piece first. I think you need to sit and look at, the MCA data is one piece, but that's a 2 or 3 day assessment right there. And sometimes an hour in math one day and an hour in math the next day, and that's your assessment for the year. I think we ought to look at local formative and summative assessments and see what's being taught in the classroom. I think we look at some STARS or Ames Web or STAR testing just to see how our students are progressing. I think we got to track those students on a longitudinal model where you look at 1 year's 3rd grade, and then as those students move to 4th grade, you see how they're progressing in 4th grade. You can look at trend data with 3rd grade data over the last 10 years, but as you follow that cohort of students from 3rd grade to 4th grade to 5th grade to 6th grade, so you're dealing with the same clientele of students, you can understand the growth and stuff that's happening there. MCA data, NWEA data, from start of the year to the end of the year is all important stuff. Surveys of parents and students, what they like and what they don't like. Do we have appropriate course offerings? Are we meeting their needs? Following those students as they graduate from high school. 2 years down the road, see how many are still in college or how many are still working or how many went to a tech school through some surveys. Speaking of activities, you look at the number of students involved. Are we seeing a rapid decline after 9th grade? Are we seeing a whole bunch that join an activity or a sport or something in 8th grade, doing family and student surveys to see what's going well and what's not is an important piece to hearing their voice and their rationale for where they're going. And also sitting down with the advisors or coaches and to see what's going on there. I'm assuming Mr. Nelson does the evaluation for most of your activities and sports and groups, just to look at the relationships there with staff and kids. Obviously, there are some staff that have a huge knack for having positive relationships with kids, and I hope that's a whole bunch of staff, but you'll see a lot of kids and some good involvement in those activities as well. And obviously you can measure success by how full your trophy case is and the ribbons that are hanging in your school, but you can also see by how many students are actually involved. We've really targeted trying to get every kid involved in 1 or 2 activities in our school. Granted, we only have about 20 kids in a class, but we know that if you can latch kids onto school activities and get them involved, whether it's in girls basketball or one-act play or yearbook or any activity, that if they're connected there, their social group's going to be improved, they're going to be more connected with school, and ultimately going to get more out of school.
Thank you.
Okay, Rob, John here. We'd like to now give you the opportunity if you have any questions you would like to ask of us.
I really don't have a lot of questions. I do want you to know my Wednesday calendar is wide open in case I would ever get called back. And that's supposed to make you smile. I want you to know just a little bit about me, and these are things you can ask, but I want to be as transparent as all transparency can be. My wife's a teacher, or actually a special ed director in the Detroit Lakes School District. We value education. I've got a son who's in his 4th year of school up in Fargo-Moorhead. I got my daughter who's a 2nd-year student at Moorhead State going for elementary education. We value education in our house. We value people and relationships and friendships. I haven't applied anywhere else. I'm not looking to leave my job just to go anywhere. I'm looking, if I were to leave my job, it would be to Pelican Rapids and Pelican Rapids only. A big reason is because I live here. A bigger reason is the positive spin you guys have in your school and community, and I want to be a part of that and help lead that. So I really appreciate the chance to interview today. I'm really humbled and embarrassed. My darn computer, for whatever reason, won't work. That's humbling and not a good reflection, and that bothers me. But I want you to know that I appreciate the chance to interview today. And if you've got anything else you want to ask, I'm all ears. I know you got to ask everybody the same questions, but wanted you to know a little bit about me and my family. I also, things that you can ask, I'm 53 years old. I want to work about another 12 to 13 years. I'm not looking to use this as a stepping stone. I'm looking to be here to be involved and be a part of a good district and help lead to the best that I can.
Thank you.
Mike, your last question. In summary, why should we hire you to be the next superintendent of Pelican Rapids School District?
And I don't know if you should. I don't know if you should, Mike. You know what you're looking for in a leader. You know what you're looking for in somebody to work with your district. I know you lost a great leader in Dr. Ed, a kind, caring, compassionate guy, and those are really big shoes to fill. So why should you hire me? If you think I'm a good fit, I hope I get offered the job. I will tell you, I will work hard for you. I'll represent your district well. I will work to build solid relationships with people and do what's best for kids. I'll be visible in our community. If you've got a better fit, I hope you go hire them. But I got to tell you, I hope I'm your fit, because I would be excited to wear the black and orange and be a part of the school district and work with some wonderful people and work hard for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Rob.
Hey, John, I do have one more question for you.
Yes.
I know you're going through your 5 interviews today. Are you looking to do make a decision tonight, it looks like, at a board meeting, probably 6 o'clock-ish, if I remember right. Are you looking to call candidates back tonight or tomorrow?
We are looking at making that decision later today. I think tentatively around the 5 o'clock-ish time point.
Okay, so even making contact tonight is what you're hoping?
Jerry could probably answer that question better. I don't have my email open. I don't remember them.
Okay.
This evening, we will be making contact.
Sounds good. Well, again, please accept my apology for the internet out here on Lake Light. I don't know what the deal is. It's still spinning saying launching, and I've logged on and logged off twice since we've been doing the interview. But I thank you all for your time. I apologize for the lack of, by the way, I did get up and shower and put on a suit and tie, just if you want that visual. But I was prepared the best I could be, and you know, I hope to hear from you tonight. And if I don't, best of luck in your decision.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Well, looks like we have 15 minutes till the next one. Correct, Jerry?
Yes, 9:45 will be Doug Froke, so we should go on break at this time. There won't be any discussion, so the meeting could be put on pause if that's okay.
Yep, looks like we're on.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, this is being live streamed on what platform, or is it just through when they log in on Zoom?
It's Zoom, and so there's a link on the website that has a Zoom as a viewer. So they were able to, you know, see the last interview or hear the last interview, and then the break in between was paused, and then now at 9:45, when you start again, well, it's recording now, so they'll be able to view again now. So it's a Zoom viewer. So they have a different link than the board they're panelists. So all the board and the administration are called panelists, and they participate in the meeting, and the others can just view.
Does that kind of answer the question, Doug?
Oh yeah, I was just curious. You know, at the board meetings in Detroit Lakes, you know, you get regularly, you know, the administrators come, and every once in a while there'll be somebody from the public that comes and sits. And so at the April board meeting done remotely, there were 150 people that had logged in to watch at one time or another. And that was really interesting. And I wonder if it didn't have something to do with graduation and those kinds of things. But I think that was kind of a little bit of a shock to us that we hadn't, you know, that we weren't expecting that at all. How about you?
We've only had a handful on our last two board meetings, so. And it's been through Zoom that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Well, do we have 9:45 when everybody else is? Yep. Okay.
Computer's fine.
Okay, welcome, Doug. I think we'll get started here. You probably already know me. I'm John Carter, board chair, and welcome to interviewing today. As you know, Dr. Richardson passed away, and we're looking at continuing on a search for superintendent here. A little bit about Pelican Rapids. We're currently around 850 students, both K through 12. Our community is about 2,500 people. We do have some culturally diverse. We are a culturally diverse district. We're pretty proud of the accomplishments that the district has gone through, and want to give you the opportunity here to interview with us. What's going to happen? We'll have a number of questions. We will take turns asking a certain question. We may ask a follow-up question if it pertains to that question only. And we'll have an hour and 15 minutes to get through the questions. It should be more than enough time to go through those. And first of all, I'll introduce everybody on the board here.
Mike Forsgren.
Hi, Mike.
Ann Peterson.
Brittany,
Brittany Dawkin.
Hi, Brittany.
Brenda,
Brenda Olson.
Hi, Brenda. Nice to meet you.
Greg,
Larson.
Hi, Greg.
okay. Let's, okay, Brenda, I'll let you, or excuse me, Brittany, I'll let you start. If you're ready, Doug, we'll get going here.
Sounds good. Thanks, John.
Okay, question 1. Briefly share your work experience in education, including your long-term career objectives, and why did you choose Pelican Rapids as a potential employer?
So again, Doug Froke is my name. Just as an aside, well, as an aside, I'm married. My wife Colleen is. We've been married for 28 years. We have 2 boys. Connor is a sophomore at the University of Minnesota, and Carson is a sophomore here in Detroit Lakes High School. And our work history comes by way of a couple different superintendencies. I did probably the best part of my work career is when I was able to teach school. I taught in a small town in what's called Wilmot, South Dakota. It's right on Interstate 29, and taught there for 7 years, and then took my first administrative spot in a small town in central, right in smack dab middle of South Dakota called Oneida. It was a consolidated district and called Sully Buttes. And it was kind of an interesting town. I was there for 5 years, 3 as principal, and then 2, the superintendent retired, and so I moved into the superintendency. The only 5 years, just to tell you that about that district, the only 5 years that they never had any success in athletics was the time I was there. I don't know if that was something to do with me or not, but it was, wow, was that something else? We had a good experience there. But as a young couple, I had just gotten married. Colleen and I had gotten married. As a young couple, you want to be by Sioux Falls if you're in South Dakota. That's just the way it is. And so we looked to be around Sioux Falls, and that goal took us to Fulda, Minnesota, which is right down. We stay right down Highway 59, and it's about 20 miles from Iowa. So Fulda was at the time was right at 600 kids. It was where I cut my teeth as a superintendent in Minnesota, and it was really a good experience. I was there for 7 years. And the 8th year, the adjoining or neighboring district, Windham, approached the Fulda board and wanted to share me. Windham was right. They had fallen underneath 1,000 students, and they were in serious financial trouble. And so they came with the idea that they'd like to share me. There was never, ever any threat of consolidation or anything of that nature because the distance was too far. It was 25 miles. There were districts in between the 2 of us, and as such, then we did that. We shared for a year, and I had my first day on the job. The business manager, I walked into the district on July 1st. And the business manager said, you need to go down to the bank. We need to borrow from the bank $50,000 because we got bills to pay and we don't have any. We don't have any money. And that tells you how the depth of the position that we were in, or Windham was in at that time. So I knew that going in. I didn't realize it was that bad. But so anyway, we spent the year working on trying to get them back into good financial shape. Obviously, it's a longer project than just a year. But at the end of that year, the Windham board said that they wanted to have their own superintendent, and so they said, if you want the job, you can have it. It's yours. And so we made the move to Windham, and so we spent the next 3 years there. And then the work history is just that the Detroit Lakes job came open, and we were successful in acquiring the Detroit Lakes position and have been here now for 13 years. So as it goes, then that's kind of the work history for us as a family. The reason we're looking at Pelican Rapids, quite honestly, I'm going to be very frank with you about this. Is that I enjoyed the experiences in Fulda and Windham. Those size districts were very. I was very comfortable there, and as such, then when we made the decision last October to be done here in Detroit Lakes, because my work here was done. I mentioned and I put in the newspaper here that I wanted to do something different, and doing something different meant doing something perhaps in the private sector, or looking at a superintendency in a schools like Fulda, like Windham, like Pelican Rapids. And so with the unfortunately, when the position came open in Pelican Rapids like it did, and certainly my condolences and sympathies to you and the Richardson family. I felt like this was an opportunity to serve and help, and I think I've got the skill set to do that, having been in districts this size, and certainly with the issues that are present in the Pelican Rapids district, and I'm excited for the opportunity, because these communities like Pelican Rapids, like Windham, like Fulda, are neat to be a part of, and that's certainly what we would look forward to.
Thank you, Mr. Froke. Greg Larson here again. Second question, what strengths do you have that makes you a strong candidate as superintendent for the Pelican Rapids School District?
Well, you know, everything that we do is about relationships, and it is. We talk about that in the classroom as it relates to making sure, particularly in these times of distance learning, that's the number one issue. Probably even more so than content where kids are concerned but the number one thing we talk about with kids all the time is relationships. And so I think as a superintendent, you want someone that's going to be able to come in and forge those solid relationships with staff and the community. And when in Detroit Lakes or in Windham or in Fulda, when people can come up to you and reference you by your first name, that's I think that's important to them. And that's in Detroit Lakes, I'm referenced as Doug. That's who I am. And I would walk into you would probably, if we were still in school today in February of this past year, if you walked into the Commons at Detroit Lakes High School, you would hear kids refer to me as Doug. The respect factor as a school person is still there, without a doubt. But I think what happens is that as you have kids and come over to your house to see your kids, Doug just comes out. And so I think that's an important quality for a person to have relationships, and that approachability factor is big where it comes in terms of a strength that I think I can bring to Pelican Rapids. The other thing I would tell you is that most people would probably say that if you asked what my strengths were, they'd probably say the financial piece of the operation. You know, like the experience in Windham was a great teacher. It was hard. It was really hard, but it taught me a lot about what has to happen and when, and all of the various options that are available to you in managing school district finances. What you can do with Fund 4 as it relates to Fund 1, what you can do in Fund 3 as it relates to Fund 1. Your newsletter that's really, really nice. Can you charge that out instead of it being a Fund 1 expense? Can you charge it out to Fund 4? All of those kinds of things are things that I learned, and as you start managing the district's dollars, and being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. There's an ethical piece. And I think that would be the other part, is the integrity. A, are we doing what's right? B, are we doing our best? And C, are we treating others the way we want to be treated? But the other part of it is, does he do what he says he does? And I think that all comes with integrity.
Second part of that, Mr. Froke, is what improvements then are you working on to be a better superintendent?
Well, I think you're constantly looking at, one of the things that happened here is in terms of Detroit Lakes, is that everything becomes really global. There are things that are happening that are you have people that carry out testing protocols, and securities, and so you manage things globally and make sure that they're getting done, and you keep an eye on the big picture. So what needs to happen for me is to come back into the area of understanding down a deeper level, maybe curricular strategies and what we're doing on a deeper level with intervention for kids. So that's what I need to do to get better, is to dive deeper into some of those more specific areas in the curriculum.
Thank you.
Brenda Olson here. Question 3, how would you describe your management style, including how you determine what kind of decisions or responsibilities are delegated to others?
Yeah, the management style is one that's basically this, it's basically hire good people, and you spend time in that recruitment process. You hire good people and you let them do their jobs. You provide guidance, and you provide guidance and what might be potential pitfalls, what are things that are strong about a particular option, and then you find a way and assist in finding a way that provides those resources if we need to carry something out. How do we find dollars, or how do we find partnerships that can help us carry out a certain initiative? So that would be the other thing. I think the main thing too is that as you talk about delegation, there's also a corresponding adjective, and that's collaboration. Meaning that I don't know everything at the third grade level about what their schedule is. What if we were to do this? Well, if you do that, then this impedes our time for third grade music, just as an example. So you have to bring in people that are close to the issue, so that you get a good sound rationale behind whatever decision is made. So I think those are kinds of the things that are important as it relates to delegation. Again, we can't do it all. There are a lot of parts to the school district, and again, they're the school district's probably one of the larger businesses in any town, and they come with a lot of moving parts, and a lot of personalities. And as such, then you have to learn to let some things go in terms of decision and carrying out projects. So delegation is pretty important, because a superintendent's job is large as well.
John again.
Hi, John.
In light of Dr. Richardson's passing, how do you keep all staff involved and motivated while keeping morale high? And what steps do you take to achieve this?
Yeah, that's I've thought about that a little bit in terms of, I heard a lot of positive energy about Dr. Richardson. And you need to know that I'm not Dr. Richardson, those kinds, and I'm not Dr. Richardson, and I would like to learn about what made him special and learn about what he did to energize the staff the way he did. Because as the question was asked by Greg earlier, what do you need? What do you need to learn? That would be one thing if I'm hired as a Pelican Rapids superintendent. What did Dr. Richardson do? What would Ed do? Kind of a thing, right? And so I think that's a key component to anybody coming in, is just understanding the components of his personality, because that resonated with the staff. By the same token, I'm not him. I have my own set of personal traits that I think this community and the staff would enjoy, just by the very nature of it, is that I'm looking forward to becoming part of a staff that talks about the fact that they're very tight, and using some of the components that I would learn about what Ed did and incorporate that in what I do. But one of the things that, as we talk about a positive culture, is making sure that you're walking the talk where a positive culture is concerned. Every day, and I call it the one-day contract. Rick Pitino, the longtime basketball coach, wrote a book called The One-Day Contract. It's what I use every day. I have a sheet that I start at 3 o'clock the preceding day that maps out my day for the next day. And one of those things on there is a constant reminder. This is just one little thing of making sure I uplift somebody every day. And one of the board members in Detroit Lake said, "Oh yeah, I do that too. I put 5 quarters in one pocket on one side of my hip. And by the end of the day, I better have all 5 quarters moving a quarter with every time I uplifted someone on the other side of my hip, as they moved a quarter with every uplifting into the other side of the hip." Neat stuff like that are some of the things that you have to constantly uplift people, and making sure that they understand every day that their jobs are important. So that's kind of what we do. Morale also is around Doug worked hard for me, meaning Brian Korf wanting to buy another set of textbooks for this. We got it, and that's maybe not the greatest example. My job as superintendent is to make sure, if he's got a tangible idea and wants something done, is how do I provide the resources to make that happen? And Brian, if I do, Brian walks away thinking he worked hard for me. And that's the way you enhance morale.
Mike here. Involvement and visibility in both the school district and community is important to the success of the superintendent and district. Provide us examples of how you will be involved, visible, approachable, and accessible in our school district community.
You know, right away, the big thing is starting out and every day being available in whatever building. You know, I think that's an important thing. It's everybody's minds are fresh after a nice night of good sleep and rest, and it's kind of a fun time of the day to be around. And so you just hanging out, being around kids in the morning, being around the staff in the morning, small talk, chat, getting to know each other on a personal level, those kinds of things. And those are the morning times, and they make breakfast, and those kinds of things, being around. Well, then the day starts, and we do our thing during the course of the day. That might mean being in buildings throughout the day, might mean meetings in the community. And so those are all kinds of things that the superintendent does. And then it becomes 5 o'clock. And whatever 5 o'clock means, it could mean that our day is done, or we're prepping for night activities. visibility is huge at night activities for whatever night activity that might mean. Right away, our mindset, goes to athletics or other arts programs. But that, moms and dads, a great opportunity to see the elementary parents. I see there were some parent nights set for the elementaries in your newsletter. That's a good place for the superintendent to be. And, it may not be playing a math game because I don't know, maybe they don't want to see the superintendent's math skills on display. But at any rate, it's just a good place to be out and about. And again, hey, Doug, can I ask you a question about this? How come we do this? And those types of conversations are there. Anyway, the big part there is that the superintendent is the conduit also from the community to the school. And it just is. And that happens a lot for me in Detroit Lakes. I'll give you an examples, and maybe you can transfer those to Pelican Rapids. I sit on the Sanford Advisory Committee here in town. I'm in Kiwanis. I'm in the Athletic Booster Club. And our church affiliation is very strong. And so those are all things that, unfortunately, this is the way it is, but the superintendent is seen there. Our family going to church is the superintendent going to church. And that's just the way it is. And those are the things that you're going to get in Pelican Rapids.
Our district goals are community engagement, educate the whole child, increase student enrollment, and sound and transparent financial practices. How would you implement and communicate the goals to the board, staff, and community? Please specify the steps you would take.
So I think, as you talked about Dr. Richardson, I took a look at the newsletter, and of course he had eloquently laid that out in his portion of the newsletter article where he laid out those goals. So I think that's constant. That's a constant. Is that anytime you mention the work of the school district, you're mentioning those goals. You folks did a lot of work in putting those goals together. I think you probably went through a lot of work in arriving at each of those 4 goals. And so now I think, and this is where I think what our next step would be in Pelican Rapids would be to take a map out, because I didn't see any of that. Our next step would be to map out what's an action plan around increase. What are we going to do to increase enrollment? What specific steps are we going to take? What does educate the whole child mean? I think you're starting to get into Pelican Rapids with some trauma-informed school, trauma-informed in servicing and those kinds of things. Is that a step that you're taking? And we let moms and dads know that these are things that we're looking at so that we can intervene where kids are concerned, because things that happen in the classroom are obviously affected by those things that are happening outside the classroom. What does community engagement mean? What are some of the specific goals around community engagement? What are what are action plans around engagement? Does the board want to have a quarterly coffee with the public? Just an idea. So I think that's as you talk about the next step is refining each of those goals into a little bit of more of an action plan. And like I said, maybe you have those already, but right away those are very good goals, and certainly we'd want to go to work and refine them, and then also I think the main thing is you talk about them all the time. You should that's part of who you are. You begin your board meetings with your goals. You label your agenda items on your board meeting agendas with this strategic goal. This applies to this strategic goal. Your principal meetings, starting with their staff, these are our goals. Those kinds of things have to be out in front. because like I said, I think you went to a lot of work to get where you're at, and to have that on a shelf in a binder would be surely not be what you want. You want that out there. You've done yeoman's work, and so those are the kinds of things that I think about. Anyway, I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Okay, number 7. School finance is important to the success of the district. What is your experience and role in your current assignment in regards to public school finance, budget development, and long-term planning for fiscal stability?
Yeah, that's what you hire the superintendent to do, is mesh the program and the desires of the program for what you want for kids and then the superintendent then has to bring the resource side to that program. And you hope that you have enough resources there to make that happen. So my experiences have been, as you can tell, have been varied over the course of my years here in Minnesota. The school district in Fulda they were very much, their philosophical belief was we spend what we get, and that was how the board wanted the situation to happen for the children of Fulda. Obviously in Windham, the Windham School District was never in statutory operating debt, but it was within thousands of dollars of that happening. And I had to come in and address and talk with the board about the importance of you have to get back to spending what you get and not more. And that was a real difficult decision, but we did that. And in fact, during that time, Windham implemented all day, everyday kindergarten. They hadn't had that because they couldn't afford it. Well, I could tell that there were kids leaving the district because there wasn't all day kindergarten. So that was implemented, that program was implemented even with some of the issues that they had from a financial standpoint. And then in Detroit Lakes, obviously they've had a good experience from a fiscal standpoint. That has been enhanced, and it's been enhanced because of the growth of the student enrollment here. The key there is what you do with that additional revenue. And as a result, the $49 million bond project and approval by the end of the project in 2022 will be parlayed into $60 million in projects, just because the district has been able to set aside dollars and place them in reserve for the purpose of additional projects when they were needed. And at the same time, over the years, providing salary raises commensurate with that of the state average. So that's kind of been my experience where finances is concerned. I understand where the Pelican Rapids district is from a financial standpoint too. And it does not, I've been there. It does not, we can go to work and collectively, all parties, we can go to work and get the district back on a financial standing that I think you can be proud of. I've seen the situation as it results where there's been some spending maybe that went over and above what you were bringing in, and so I understand that you've kind of put some things in place to protocols in place are important where budgeting is concerned. And but one thing is for sure, we need to get that fund balance up into an area between 15 and 25%, and we'll go to work collectively as part of your goals of financial transparency to make that happen. I would just say that I think I saw that, I think you're right around the 7% fund balance. somewhere in there, and so we need to that's something that needs work. There's no doubt about it, and I'm ready to take that on for you.
Okay, Mr. Froke, when looking at your current district's MCA scores, describe an initiative in your current district for improvement.
Yeah, so the biggest thing over the last few years, we've I wonder if we haven't gotten a little MCA fatigue. Just that the whole idea of this again kind of a thing. I don't know, but what started to happen, things were functioning fairly well in Detroit Lakes, meaning that as you folks this year were a school of excellence, which is great. Congratulations, Mr. Nelson, and that's really good stuff. Detroit Lakes was there as well. And then it became, what we started to see, or what started to happen was third, fourth, and fifth grade reading started to flounder a bit. And what we had to have a conversation about, because that was different. That was not the what the district had been accustomed to. So what started to happen is again, it goes back to relationships. Let's go in and let's gather the staff at each level, and let's start having conversations. First of all, you have to get their input as to what they think. The data is there. The data is there. The data tells us where, what the shortcomings are, and what the strands are. So, okay, staff, let's talk about what's happening here. So you get that feedback, and you start looking at things and recognizing what their thoughts are. But you start also looking at these, where are we missing where the content standards are concerned. And obviously looking at the data, looking at the whole child. Are we seeing some trauma somewhere? Is that an impact? And then also what started to happen is we started integrating what we call pacing guides, where we've come the full evolution of the concept of teaming. We implement the content standards. We get together as PLCs, like in most every other district. We evaluate data, and then we make decisions on individual kids based upon that data. Well, there was a missing piece there, and the missing piece was some teachers were teaching things at a different time and at a different pace. And meaning that maybe one teacher wasn't spending enough time on a certain strand of the test or of the reading area. So what started to happen was jointly, then the teachers started laying out how much time they're going to spend on this strand, and how much time when they're going to be done throughout the course of the year, and laying that all out. So all kids got the same amount of time, and were being taught at the same time. So if I could walk into Mrs. Hannon's room, and she's working on fluency, I should be able to go into Mr. Highmark's room, and he would be working on fluency as well. Maybe not the greatest example, but that's what I'm talking about. Again, teachers and strategies are one thing, but timing and consistency for kids throughout and getting the same thing is an important part to all of that. And that's kind of what's been happening in Detroit Lakes.
Thank you.
This is Brenda again. Pelican Rapids is a diverse school district. What is your experience working with diverse student populations, and specifically the state's Achievement and Integration Program?
Sure. Take the second part first. My experience with the Achievement Integration, I was on the ground floor, I think in 1999, when it was, at that time it was called the Integration Plan. When I was in Fulda. Fulda was 15 miles north of Worthington, and that was the adjoining district, which obviously well documented. I think Worthington has just now gone over the 70 percentile in diversity at their elementary. And so that was coordinated. So my experience with the program, not only did it start in Fulda, but then again it went to Windham, and then Detroit Lakes was not an integration school when I came here, and as a result, then that was another way. Doug found resources for the district, and now we contribute about just over 300,000 to the collaborative with you being the isolated district, right? So that's been a kind of a nice thing. We've been able in Detroit Lakes, again, because of your partnership, hire an instructional coach or charge an instructional coach out, and we've been able to benefit from the culture in Pelican Rapids without a doubt. And I think our kids, we do some things with our kids and the Pelican kids remotely, I think, too. So that's that. I've been on the ground floor where the integration program has been concerned. So really neat program. My experience with diversity comes by way of the Detroit Lakes. Right now, of the 3,000 students, 600 of them are members of the White Earth tribe. And so that means that there is a great deal of interaction with the Native American families within the district to talk about how those children are receiving programming, and if they're happy with the programming that they receive in the district. We're really fortunate right now, and then our parent group has developed into a real supportive an active group in our schools. They were important in the passage of the bond issue, in that the parent group went and talked with our Native families on the White Earth Reservation about the importance of the facilities here. In turn, then, what's happening is Detroit Lakes will now integrate signage into the new facilities that has Ojibwe as the language and the dialect for the signage that'll be used here. So anyway, so that's 600 out of 3,000 is quite a bit. The other thing is that there's the diversity as it relates to free and reduced, those students and free and reduced population. Here in Detroit Lakes, that runs just over 40%. I see in Pelican Rapids, that's 55%. So that in and of itself, and equity makes for an attention that we need to pay to those children who are in affluent situations. So yeah, those are kinds of experiences I've had with diverse groups.
John here again. How do you foster a positive professional climate of mutual trust and respect among faculty, staff, and administration?
Well, I think a large part of it is kind of what I referenced before. Does Doug do what he says he's going to do? And you know, that's kind of a big thing with staff and with at all levels of the organization. I think that's an important piece where integrity is concerned. I think people understand the role of the superintendent, the role of the principal, the role of the teacher, and as it relates to the interaction with one another. And sometimes the superintendent, you know, has to make decisions that maybe not everybody's going to like. But I think as it relates to impacting people individually, how were they treated? And so as it relates to, during the process? Were they allowed input? Were they given the opportunity for feedback? In certain situations, were they given fair due process? And that kind of thing. So all of those things kind of weigh into how you build trust. One of the messages that I received loud and clear from the group this morning at 8:30 was, just how experienced they are. They know what to do, and they're very proud of their school. So we got to come in there and integrate. I have to come into Pelican Rapids and integrate myself into a culture like that, where they believe in the job that they're doing, and I do too. Simply because of the test data, or not the data that I see. It says a lot when 90% of the kids in Pelican Rapids think that the teachers care about them. That comes from your report card. That says a lot. And so how do I integrate myself into that culture? Because that's an important piece to maintaining stability, maintaining good direction in the times that we're in Pelican Rapids. Again, you're given the building trust comes from allowing input, listening to feedback, and treating them as they would want to be treated if they were in my shoes.
Mike here again. Effective communication takes time and effort. What methods and platforms do you use to communicate to the board, admin team, staff, and community?
Yeah, that's like I said, communication is the superintendent district office board. That's the hub of communication for the district, both internally and externally. So my relationship with the board is built on supporting one another. I mean, me supporting the board and making sure that decisions that are out there and choices that are out there are all weighed out and examined. And then the board supporting me as a superintendent, and the way that happens is that there's a constant flow of information. That's changed a lot over the years, and boards have become more involved in needing information to make the best possible decisions for our kids. And so that information, being in the information age, is coming at us very fast and very frequent. So constant opportunities with the board on sharing information and opportunities for dialogue. So that's a big piece to the operation. I think as we get into communications with the principals and the staff, principals and superintendent have a unique relationship as well. Principals have a tough job. I'm a superintendent because I don't want to be a principal, because of the job is hard, and they've got a lot of things coming at them at all different times of the day. But I have to make sure that they have the support that they need to carry out their jobs. What does that mean? The basic thing I'm going to look for is how is a principal treating others from a due process standpoint, because they have jobs that they need to carry out to make sure everybody's safe, and to make sure that they put good teachers in front of our kids. So communications with them, so they understand what's happening in the district on a deeper level, is critical. And then our staff needs to know that what's happening in the district as well. Large part of communication is frequent and often, and in the world that we live in now, it's very much your website is well developed. We need to work in real time when we see things put out on our websites on a daily basis, because that's what they're asking superintendents now.
Do you encourage participation of employees in any district decisions? If so, what process do you use?
You know, what's interesting about that is the state law. There isn't much in state law where some of our funding streams and our planning for how we educate kids that doesn't have a committee attached to it. And there just isn't. There's so much of that is committee driven. The legislature builds that piece into all of our programming. So that's in many cases that's a inherent given where feedback is concerned. Many times when we look at the staff, if we're going to put in a new initiative, the buy-in of the staff is very, very important. Case in point. So one of the things that Detroit Lakes is doing is a redesign of the high school around the career academies. By the time the current sophomore class graduates, within 2 years, they will be recognized as having graduated from an academy. Carson Froke will walk across the stage, get the diploma, and be announced as Carson Froke Academy of Health Sciences. One of the things that happened there was it's taking longer. It's taken longer than it should. For a simple reason that it was hard for us to get staff to buy in because that staff had been brought up or had cut their teaching teeth by way of an AP school, college prep, those kinds of things, and had philosophical differences with the idea that we're starting to prepare kids for career. Not college necessarily, but career. College comes after an idea of what your career is going to be. And so therefore, as we talk about communication, we should have spent more time in the beginning on integrating more teacher counselor based support and presence than we should have in the beginning. But you live and learn, and those are the things that we all work toward. It's very important, and especially, like I said, we heard that from your staff earlier this morning. They're a good bunch.
Okay. How have you worked collaboratively with other agencies and businesses to create partnerships in your community, such as a community college, non-public schools, or government agencies?
Sure. Just to give you an example on the design, our businesses in Detroit Lakes, or the businesses in Detroit Lakes, would have contributed over 4,000 hours of time since last August until we stopped in March, meaning that now has become the focal point of what we do on a daily basis with kids where the academy model is concerned. And so the kids aren't going to learn about a career from a textbook. So it's important that we bring folks in to talk with kids about careers that are in the career. And so 4,000 hours, that's a lot of adults walking into a building. And so that's an example of one thing. The post-secondary or the college experience for kids obviously comes by way of concurrent enrollment. And so those are the larger partnerships, but they have a piece and a seat at the table where we talk about how we can enhance our workforce in our towns. And so what can they do for the school to enhance potential workers in our communities. So all of those things are there. Sanford is obviously Essentia is a big player. We look to them as you would look to a health provider to come in and talk about health careers and those kinds of things. But can they provide other resources financially and those kinds of things? So that gives you an idea, and you go on and on. What is your partnerships? One of the first things. An entry plan that coming into the Pelican Rapids district as a superintendent means going to that city council meeting and introducing Doug Froke and going to Otter Tail County and introducing Doug Froke as the new superintendent of Pelican Rapids, and getting that first foot forward, because cities and counties and schools work together. And they have to for our communities and county's sake.
We got about 15 minutes left. Plenty of time for great answers. So just wanted to keep everybody in mind on how much time we have. So, Greg, go ahead.
Have you ever run a bond or levy referendum? If so, was it successful? And what was your role and what did you learn from the experience?
Yep, we've as you know, we've referenced it earlier, particularly in Detroit Lakes. Operating levy, that was the end game in Windham, and a couple operating levies in Fulda because of the decline in enrollment and those kinds of things, where the land was or the ag economy or demographics slowed. But those are examples of playing or of conducting operating or bond referendums. The bond referendum in Detroit Lakes, probably well documented, went on the fourth try. And it was, like I say, it was very frustrating. Here's what we learned. And it was hard. The initial referendums in Detroit Lakes were based upon a philosophy that the board going to the public and saying, this is what we need. This is what we need, so we're telling you this is what we need, so please approve it. Well, that unfortunately that doesn't work anymore. The story has to be a little deeper than that, and that was what we learned. And so the lesson that we learned as it relates to passage of bond referendums and operating levy is that you have to ask them. And that what that means is that the passage of the bond issue in Detroit Lakes was not going to happen until there was a scientific survey conducted asking them what the tolerance level was, what they supported, what they liked about the school, what their ideas were, and then that's conducted scientifically. And once that was done, and once there was an idea generated from those survey results, we were successful. And quite honestly, it ran in lockstep. The actual percent of the election results walked in step with what was predicted by the survey. So it's become very scientific. There's no doubt about it. And so that was one of the big things I learned. Did you guys do a survey too with yours?
Yes.
Yeah. Who did you use?
What was that, John?
Baker Tilly.
Baker Tilly. Okay. Don Lifto.
Kelly Smith. Yep.
Oh, Kelly did it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's important. And I think the same holds true. I think you have to do that with an operating levy too. I do.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Froke.
This is Brenda again. How would you conduct an assessment of the district's academic and extracurricular programs to determine if the needs of all students and groups are being addressed?
Yeah, equity is a big piece. I think you have to be purposeful with the data. There's a ton of data that's out there on our portals and on our website from the Department of Ed. And so it takes a lot where the evaluation of that data is concerned, but it has to be purposeful. In other words, if we think that if we prioritize it, we're going to measure it. And if we think that trying to determine or address what we believe might be shortages where some of our diverse groups are concerned, then yeah, you have to measure it. And that data is available for you to assess on the district's website. So, I mean, yeah, we have to be purposeful about it.
Okay, this is John again. There's 2 questions left. The question I have for you is, we'd like to give you the opportunity if you have any questions you would like to ask of us. We're giving you the opportunity to ask
Okay.
questions of us.
So the number one quality you're looking for in the next superintendent in Pelican Rapids?
Some experience, good public relations, ability to collaborate with our staff. Trust is huge. Anybody else?
I'd say the trust and the collaborating with our admin team and staff is hand in hand.
Any other?
Add the collaboration between the school community together with the businesses and governmental agencies that you had touched on through the question we had presented to you earlier. To me, that's a significant quality, or a quality that I really think is important from a global perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mike, last question.
In summary, why should we hire you to be the next superintendent of the Pelican Rapids School District?
Well, you know, I don't know. I can tell you I have a real interest in the job. I really do. I think I bring. I'm going to tell you. I think I'm a really good fit for the job. I bring the experience piece that you talked about. I think my experience has passed both from a financial perspective, are pretty involved. Experience is a great teacher, and one of the things that I learned about, is particularly, you're in clearly better financial shape than Wyndham was. Okay, so I don't mean to. You're clearly in better shape, but obviously there needs to be some work done. But what I wish I could have done differently in Wyndham is enhance the working relationship during the process of getting them back on their feet financially. And so I know that now. And so it's hard, but I also know that relationships move past a lot of other things in carrying out and trying to do what's best for kids. So it's really, for me, it's like an opportunity to use what I've learned and over the years to really have the opportunity to serve the Pelican district, because I'm excited about it. And I don't know, the opportunity to be a Viking really is I look forward to it. I really do. Like I said, I think I'm a great fit for what you need right now. And as you brought up Ed and what he did for the staff to re-energize them, I think I can do the same thing, maybe in a different way. but I had a lot of respect for him, and we all did. And I think for right now, I think I can come in and keep the positive vibe going, but maybe in a different way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That completes the line of questions. So
Well, okay.
appreciate you taking the time to visit with us.
Well, thank you for the interview. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm excited about the possibility. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to call or have Jerry call. If I didn't address something that you would like to have further, clarified, by all means, feel free to give me a call.
Okay. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, good luck. Have a good day.
Yep. Thanks. Well, should we, how many minutes we got?
13 minutes.
13 minutes. Should we take a quick 5-minute break and come back? Sound good, Jerry? What are your thoughts?
I think the recording, after we're done talking here, will stop, and then right at 11 o'clock, we should get going again when Mr. Goetz, I believe, is next on deck. He's from North Dakota, and we'll just jump right into our next interview.
Okay, thanks.
3 of us, Don, myself, and Ann. Dave is on the wrong meeting. Okay.
Okay, Dave might be on the wrong meeting. So we'll get him turned around.
Oh, he's an attendee here. He has the wrong, let me call.
He's an attendee.
Yeah,
Okay.
he had, let me call. Can I bump him up?
Dave, if you can hear us, we're gonna try to get you to where you need to be.
There you go. Hey, he is right on our meeting, on the attendance promoted him, so we should be good.
There he is.
Yeah, there he is. Yep. All right, cool. We're good. Yep.
Now I can see everybody and hear everybody. So sorry about that. Not quite sure what I did wrong there, but
Hello, Dave. How are you?
good. How are you guys? Good.
Let me look at the rest of the board. This is kind of a unique situation here. We're doing Zoom, but everybody looks like they're ready to go.
We need your volume up, John.
So I need to talk louder.
That helped. Yep.
Dave, it's Bill. Got your text. I'm not going to respond because you're here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anyway, I'm board chair. I'm John Carter, and just want to welcome you to testing with us today. What we're going to do is a series of a number of questions. We'll have an hour and 15 minutes to try and get those questions done. Each board member will ask various questions. Just a little bit about our district. We're in a community of about 2,500 people. Obviously, the school district is a little bit bigger in population than that. We have 850 students at this time in both K through 12. We have a lot of pride in our community and our building. And again, I welcome you here. I'm going to introduce the rest of the board members here and attendees here before we get started, if that's okay.
Mike Forsgren, vice chair.
Okay.
Ann Peterson, clerk.
Brenda?
Brenda Olson.
Greg?
Greg Larson, board member.
Brittany?
Hi, Brittany Dockin.
And we also have some administrative staff here. Rudy? Try that again.
Try it again, Rudy.
Oh, his mic.
Microphone must not be working.
Okay, that's Rudy Martinez.
Rudy Martinez, business director. And Derek, Brian.
Brian Korf, high school principal.
And Derek Nelson, elementary principal and activities director.
Jerry?
Jerry Ness, interim superintendent. We've been in contact. Nice to meet you, Dave.
Nice to meet you face to face, Jerry. Thank you. Very nice to meet everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I'll try and keep my answers short, so that way I don't overrun your guys' time. So
We haven't had any trouble with the past two, so take your time and answer them.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Brittany, are you ready to go?
Yep. Okay, so briefly share your work experience in education, including your long-term career objectives, and why did you choose Pelican Rapids as a potential employer?
Okay. About my history, I started as a math Phi-Ed teacher when I was down at North Sargent. In the 2 years I was there, I pretty much had started a archery program down there. And when I had left, the board had, or not the board, the superintendent and high school principal asked if I had interest ever of going into administration. And that kind of got the wheels turning that, yeah, I do have interest in that. So then when I went to TAP, and with about halfway through the first semester, I was already being asked to move into the principal position. At that point, Christmas time, I pretty much had taken over those duties, even though I wasn't able to have the title and everything. The principal was still there, but he pretty much turned everything over to me at that point. So I was doing my full load of teaching and doing the principal stuff on top of that. And then I spent a year of principal as a high school principal, and then still doing some teaching and math down there. And then the third year, the second year, what was it? Third year I was there, I became the K-12 principal on top of all those teaching duties. And at that point, my superintendent was leaving, and he asked if I ever had interest in moving up into the superintendent, because he felt I had the leadership skills and all that really come well with the superintendency. So that's when I moved into exploring the option of going into superintendent, and I obtained the superintendent high school principal position here in Wing, and I've been here for the last 5 years. Throughout the 5 years, I've went from superintendent high school principal to superintendent K-12 principal, back to the superintendent high school principal, just kind of bouncing around a little bit, to doing what I have to make this school work the best that it can. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. I'm not afraid to get into things. Why did I choose Pelican Rapids? I like the idea. My daughter, I'm a single parent, and my daughter loves the water, and I know you're really close to water there. So that would be a big plus to that. The other part of it is my daughter has talked about going to college out in that area, and I really would like to kind of stay somewhat close, so I don't have to travel hours upon hours to get to see her. And the other nice thing is my sister lives in Fargo, so there's a close relative, so I also have family that's close there. In a nutshell, that's a short and sweet answer, I should say.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Dave. Greg Larson here again. Second question. What strengths do you have that make you a strong candidate as superintendent for the Pelican Rapids School? And what improvements are you working on to become a better superintendent?
I think the strengths that I have is because there was a 10-year gap between when I went to finish college for John Deere Ag Tech. When I finished that, there's a 10-year gap in there. And through that, along with my growing up as a dairy farmer, I have a very strong work ethic, but I also spent 3.5 years building houses. I have a mechanics degree. So I have a really big background of everything that happens in the school. The weak part that probably came in was the educational piece. And the benefit that I have is I am a fast learner. And I think that's why I've expanded as fast as I have, is because I do learn quickly. I don't sit back, and as long as I can see it and I can get my hands on it, I'm going to learn it pretty quick. I just drew a blank. Sorry about that. The online thing's got me a little for a loop, but that's all right. Can I ask you to repeat that question real quick? Just the strength.
Sure. It's kind of a two-parter, but what strengths do you have that makes you a strong candidate as superintendent for Pelican Rapids School? And then the second part of that is, what improvements are you working on to become a better superintendent?
Okay. The other part that really helps me to become a really strong superintendent is I'm a person that I like to get out with the kids. I like to get out with the community, and I like to take input from them. I'm not going to come out and just make a decision by myself. I'm not going to come out and say, here's what's going to happen, unless I have to. You know, when this COVID stuff hit, I had to do that. And that was great. But at the same time, I think the more input that we get, the more data that we can collect and put together, it's going to make a better, solid decision. So that's probably another really big strength. The other thing is I really like to connect with the kids. So the more I can get in the classrooms and even walking through the halls and getting to know the kids, that's important to me. I'm all about the kids because I simply think that the kids are why we're there. If we're not there for the kids, we're not there trying to improve the kids, we really don't have a school system because there is no other reason to be there. As far as an improvement, I would say one of the things, because of the situations that I've always been in dual roles and combination roles. I personally have to have a trust before I can start letting some of those duties go, because everything falls on my shoulders. If it goes wrong, I take the heat. I feel that everything that goes wrong is my responsibility. So I don't want to put somebody else in charge and then have them get in trouble because they didn't quite understand exactly, or we weren't thinking the same way. I want to make sure that we have that good connection. Don't get me wrong, I'm okay with giving out those duties, but I want to be able to have that conversation and be involved with some things to get started with it, so I can fill them out. You know, not only that, but they can fill me out too. So we're all on the same page and we're working together to come out with the best outcome that we can. I would say that's probably my biggest weakness is sometimes I struggle with letting things go because I know that it all falls on my shoulders. I don't want to goof up. I don't want to have those mistakes. I know I'm human, but I don't want to have somebody else make those mistakes for me.
Thank you, Mr. Goetz.
Brenda here. How would you describe your management style, including how you determine what kind of decisions, responsibilities are delegated to others?
Okay, you kind of broke up there, but I think I got the gist of the question. My leadership style is basically I like to lead by example. At the same time, I'm kind of hands off. I feel that we have experts in those positions, so we need to let them explore and become the experts that they are and continue to grow as the experts that they are. But I'm not scared to jump right beside them if they need help. I'm always there to be able to visit with. My door is always open. So as far as a leadership style, I guess I'm hands-on, but at the same time, I'm very hands-off because of the fact of I want the success to come from those people also. As far as like right now, I know the elementary principal and I are working side by side a lot. There's a lot of times because she's also our counselor. So we do work side by side a lot as far as administration. She's always asking questions and really wanting help with that guidance. So I'm there helping that a lot. I'm okay with saying if it's not a necessity in the superintendent side of things, I'm okay to say, you know what, this can wait. This is way more important. I need to go and attend to this with helping that staff member out. It may be a teacher. It may be a administrator. It may be a computer person, this IT person. If wherever it is, I'm going to try to help to do what I can. Doesn't mean I'm an expert. Doesn't mean that I'm perfect. I've also have had times where I've had teachers say, you know, I'm just really struggling with this. And even though I may not have been their principal, I've gone in there and I've helped them too as the superintendent. There's nothing wrong with that. I just got to make sure when I do that, I inform the principal so that they know, hey, I'm not stepping on your toes. That's not what this is about. It was a question to ask. And then also that way the principals also know what's going on. You know, they got to be informed too. It's a two-way street. If I'm not informing them, they're not going to inform me. And I think that communication is huge.
Okay. In the light of Dr. Richardson's passing, how do you keep all staff involved and motivated while keeping morale high? What steps do you take to achieve this?
You know, I was kind of doing a little bit of research with that, and one of the things that kind of I think is important was his pineapple. The pineapple that he was doing is very important. And the reason I say that is simply because when things are starting to get down, you maybe need to step back from the educational field, and you may need to come back together and start to build back up. Some things that I did here when I started to notice those tensions start to rise, or the stresses start to hit, and all that starts to happen. We may have taken a day and said, you know what, it's time. Let's take this afternoon and we're going to go have a kickball tournament. It might be something as simple as, you know what, I still really see the kids or the staff is really starting to struggle. There's some bickering starting to happen. Let's try and do a spark up. So I would go out and buy ice cream for everybody. I know it's against the code or the policy here, but at the same time, that little bit of ice cream brought a lot of life back to the students. It brought a lot of life back to the staff, and they realized that, you know what, it's okay. We're all in this together, and we have to continue to work together to make it through it. I'm not an expert, so if there's other input, I'm okay with taking input. I'm constantly looking for ways to improve the atmosphere inside the school, and that's the goal. Kind of went sidestep with some things that I do, so I hope that answers your question enough. If you want, I can give you some more.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Mike Harrigan. Involvement and visibility in both the school district and community is important to the success of the superintendent and district. Provide us examples of how you will be involved, visible, approachable, and accessible in our school district community.
Some examples, I know, just to give you some idea of like what I've done here. I'm volunteering on the fire department. I'm volunteering on the ambulance garage. I am attending the community day meetings. So I attend those, and they've actually asked me to lead some of those in the years past. And they just said, you know, at some points I got to say enough is enough. So I am constantly trying to get into the community. The big thing is getting out and supporting the community and being a face for the school. That's important. If I'm not going to be in the community, I think I should be living in the community. If I'm not going to be doing those things, then I don't think I'm doing things to help be a good face for the school. All those things that you do, you know, if there's a community event or a fair going on, I should be at those. You know, I understand there's times where things come up and I won't always make it. But I will say, out of the 3 schools that I've been at so far, I've missed probably 3 things in the last 10 years at the different schools. And it's not because I've wanted to, it's because of other engagements have taken me away before and I can't get anything around that. One of the things, just kind of give you an example here, they have a rodeo and community days on one weekend. What I did was I jumped in and I started serving the food. Where does everybody come when they're hungry? They come to the food. So it brought my face out and it showed them that I am there. I'm here. You got questions, don't hesitate, ask. Another thing that I kind of enjoy doing, I can't do it all the time because I'm very busy here. And that's kind of one of the things I'm hoping that I'm able to do more of, is there seems to always be a coffee group somewhere. And I would love to go down and have breakfast or coffee and sit down with the community and just be there to talk and ask questions. Because if I'm there to be the face for the school, who better to get advice from, not really advice, but who better to get ideas from to start building and continue to improve the school than the community that we're supposed to be serving. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Our district goals are community engagement, educate the whole child, increase student enrollment, and sound and transparent financial practices. How would you implement and communicate the goals to the board, staff, and community? Please specify the steps you would take.
Okay, let's see. There's a lot of information in that one question, so I'll try and sum it up a little bit. Maybe if you're okay, I'm going to kind of explain what I do here. As far as educating the whole student, I'm going to jump with that one because that one's a passion of mine. One of the things I started here about 3 years ago is I noticed there was, when I first came, there was some bullying. There was some kids that seemed like they ran the school and they were in charge of everything. And they didn't see the effects of what they were having on other students and other parents and other family members. So what I did is I started a program here, and it's kind of a really hard to say exactly a program, but I do like to say it's a program because it's something we've been building for the last 3 years. And what I did is I try to teach to the whole student. So if a student feels like they're being bullied, I'm going to use bullying because that seems to be the hot topic around a lot of schools. And when a student feels like they're being bullied, there's two different ways you can handle it. One way is you can punish the bully, and the bully can sit in detention or out of school suspension, in school suspension, and they can sit and stir and think of more things that they can do to bully that kid. Or I could do the flip side. I can educate the person that's being bullied on how to get the bully to stop. And that's what we have concentrated on here. And that's why I say I work closely with our counselor because it was something that was important for her to be a part of how to teach the kids to understand what they have to do in their correct steps. And what we noticed here is our bullying went way down. The kids are enjoying coming to school. They're not scared to be picked on because they know how to stand up for themselves. And it's a matter of communicating and talking. The other thing is I noticed our grades went up when that started happening. We don't have the kids that really struggled. It seems like they were also the ones that were having more troubles with the bullying. So when we started to correct that and it gave them a voice, it really brought out a lot more than just their voice. It brought out the feel and the empowerment to be able to continue to move forward. There was a lot of stuff in that question, so I'm missing some of it, I think.
I can repeat if you want me to. I can repeat it again.
I think I'm going to try. I might need you to, but I'm going to try one more here. To as far as communicating with the board, and that's kind of. I might shake your head if I'm right. Communicating and with everybody and bringing everybody together. Did I miss it?
Yep. In terms of the district goals.
Okay, so I think yes. The big thing is that I can't do it all on my own. So I got to work with my principals. I got to work with the staff to continue to educate everybody around us of what's going on. Again, a big piece of it though is getting out in the community and talking about what are those goals and learning. First thing is for me is to learn what those are and make sure I'm understanding them 100% correctly before I go out and start saying, here's what we're trying to do. Once I learn that, I'm that mouthpiece, I guess you could say. And that's where one of the things that, as you can see, I like to talk, even though I was a very shy kid growing up. I like to be able to explain things. As long as I know what I'm talking about, I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to try and do what I can to help you through that. So that's why I say the first thing is I have to learn. And that's where working with your principals and making sure that we're all on the same page, and then working with the board and making sure that I'm understanding what you guys are wanting to guide. And then it starts at the top with you guys at the board, and then it comes to me, and then I disperse it to the principals. So I'm kind of thinking you got to have it laid out that way, if that makes sense. And then the teachers get it after that. I'm going to stop talking because I think I'm talking too much in circles. So sorry.
Okay, next question. School finance is important to the success of the district. What is your experience, and role in your current assignment in regards to public school finance, budget development, and long-term planning for fiscal stability?
Right now, what I do as far as the budget goes is basically, it's me and the business manager that work with the budget. The board approves the budget at the end. But as far as how it's working currently is I have created the budget and then I go through it with the business manager. And we call it business manager here. So if it's different there, I apologize. So I create it, then I go through it with the business manager, and then I come back and we fine tune it together, and then we take it to the board because the board makes the final approval of that. Now, as far as that goes, after that, everything else here is basically on my shoulders. So the business manager writes the checks and she balances the checkbook. But in order for those things to go out, all that comes through my desk, and I'm in charge of saying, yes, this was supposed to be happening. No, that's not supposed to be happening. So that is something that has been on my shoulders here, and making sure that the school district is staying ahead of the game. In a smaller school here in North Dakota, because we're paid per student in North Dakota, which is a little bit different. I'm sure there's some similarities, but there's some differences that way. And with a smaller population of students, our budget becomes very tight here. So some of the things that we have to do is we have to maybe do a lot more work in-house than hiring some of the stuff out. And that's something you have to look at and look, is it feasible to do the projects that we want? Can we do it in-house, or do we need to go out of house? So the big thing is really having a monitoring system set up to watch that. I like to, when I create the budget, I like to have 3 years of spreadsheets in front of me. I put it all into an Excel spreadsheet and I build it off of that, because every district is different. And that's why I would need to come in, when I come in, I would want to make sure I'm having 3 years of experience there and working closely with the business manager there. So that would be education, yeah.
I guess one question relating to that. When you develop your budget, do you work with your administration team or staff, or how do you develop a budget?
In the past, I've been able to do most of it myself here, but in a bigger school, as you get bigger and bigger, I believe that the principals have to be involved in some of that, because the fact is they're in charge of the buildings in a way, if that makes sense. They know what they need for staffing. They know what they're going to need for if they need a para or an aide to come in. They know what their schools need, so I think they need to be a part of that. The other thing is they're in their buildings constantly, so when I mean constantly, I mean like every day. They're there all day, so they know what is probably going to be needed in that building more so than I probably would. Now, if I'm in the same building, that's going to help a lot too. That currently I've always been in the same building that I've been setting the budget for, so that makes a big difference too. So I think that the administration needs to be involved with some of that too, but it's more so on a school side versus the business manager and I would be sitting together to do more of the overall, if that makes sense. That clarify what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Goetz, bear with me just one moment. I'd like to defer to Jerry and Derek and Brian with regard to this next question, because it refers to what I understand to be Minnesota comprehensive assessments.
Yes, that would be, there must be a similar test for North Dakota. So it's a state testing system. Yep.
So, Mr. Goetz, in our question, we make reference to MCA, but when I make reference to that, that'll be your North Dakota state testing requirement system, whatever that may be, okay? Thanks, Jerry. When looking at your current district's state testing scores, describe an initiative in your current district for improvement.
Here's the tricky part about that, and I don't mean to go political on you here, but I'm going to do a little bit of that. And the reason I say that is because here in North Dakota, it's a little bit different probably than Minnesota, but our state test is nothing more than the legislators to look at to see if the funding is really working the way they want to work it. They only get a little bit of snippets of the test. Same with us, we only get certain parts of the test, so we don't get a whole round look. So I'm going to refer back to, we go to another test that helps us in-house. We call it, it's called the NWA. And I see Jerry shaking his head, so he knows what I'm talking about. I like to look at the data from that because it gives me a more rounded picture of where are we needing some help. It also helps the teachers to be able to look at, okay, this kid is struggling in this specific area. I really need to give that extra help to that teacher or to that student in that when it comes to that time. That test gives me more information of, you know what, maybe we need to look at our curriculum. If we're really struggling and it's something that's apparent all the way along, we may need to look at our curriculum. Now, if it's one class, we may need to look at the class and say, maybe we need to get an aide into that class to help, or maybe we need to split the class into two so that we can get more honing into the specific needs that each student's needing. It just kind of helps break things down a little bit more. So that data would probably be looked at the same concept, same way as that. What do we need to do to improve those scores and continue to improve them?
Thank you, Mr. Goetz.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Brenda here again. Pelican Rapids is a diverse school district. What is your experience working with diverse student populations and specifically the state's Achievement and Integration Program or similarity that you would have there?
I guess I'm kind of different in the fact that I don't look at anybody different than anybody else. It doesn't, just because we have different nationalities, we have to continue to improve. And I'm not saying that we can't forget about their interest and all that, because that's very important. Just to kind of give you an example, some of my friendships, I have Native Americans that are friends. I have African Americans who are some of my best friends. And I've learned that the trust and the faith that you have with those communities can sometimes be stronger than my own background. That doesn't say anything negative towards anybody. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I know that one of the things that when you get into Native Americans, I didn't realize it at first, and it's something that we have to continue to learn. So, and this is why I think it's important for the schools to do that, is one of my friends who was a Native American told me that eye contact is a bad thing. And I'm really bad with eye contact because I like to have eye contact when I'm talking to people. That's why this online is really kind of throwing me for a loop, because I have all these eyes I'm looking at and it's kind of blowing my mind. But I love to have that face-to-face contact, and I want to be able to see you and talk to you in person. In a Native American culture, that's actually an insult. So I've had to learn that, you know what, when I'm talking to a Native American, I need to be careful that if they're shying away and they're not looking at me, that's their culture. And every culture is a little bit different. So we have to teach that in the school system. So the things that I learned from that is, if I don't teach that to the kids, how are they ever going to know that? So bringing the different cultures in, and maybe having different, working with the principals on this, obviously, and seeing what they do now versus maybe bringing some ideas. One of the thoughts is maybe having different culture months, so that we learn about the different cultures to try and build into that concept of, okay, here's something you may have not known, and bringing the kids forward to help guide some of that instruction. I can't say anything better than if you're going against somebody's culture, we need to fix that. And why is that important? That goes right back to teaching the whole child of why is it important? Because it might affect another kid. It might hurt their feelings and you don't even know it. And that's why it's important to bring that culture piece back into the schools.
Thank you. John again here. How do you foster a positive professional climate of mutual trust and respect among faculty, staff, and administration?
I think the big part is being visual helps a lot, and knowing when the trust is being broke and why is it being broke. So you've got to be able to be involved and being connected with the staff. Something that I've done in the past is I probably shouldn't center everything around food, but when I grew up, food was what everything was centered around. Your family came together, and I look at a school as a family. So if we're having troubles in that family, we need to bring that back together and figure out what's going on and fix that. And communication is the way to fix it. So if we're not talking and we're not communicating, it's going to be a big struggle to be able to fix any of our problems. But one of the things that I've done is in the past, I've cooked a big meal, and on a weekend, I brought their families in, and I brought the community together, not the community, but the family, the school family, and we bring them together. I've included board members in there. I included my staff in there, I include my substitute teachers in there. And yeah, it cost me some money to do that. But what it did was it built a big connection between everybody. And what it really helped give me a base to build onto. Now I know the staff is quite a bit bigger there, so I might have to save up $1 or $2 before I can do that big of a meal. But I personally cook it. I asked for permission to go into the school to be able to use the school kitchen. I may ask my mother to come out and help me do some of that cooking. And I like to kind of center it around the holiday if possible, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be that way. The other thing I like to do is I like to try and bring my staff together at the end of the year. And even if it's just a barbecue, you know, throw some burgers on, hot dogs, but bring your kids with. Because what I've learned is when you start bringing each other's families together, you learn about their families and it really helps them to understand each other. And again, it goes back to being able to communicate, and it's breaking down those barriers to create that communication.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me. Mike here again. Effective communication takes time and effort. What methods and platforms do you use to communicate to the board, admin team, staff, and community?
I'm going to use my current just because every school is going to be a little bit different, and I feel that I would have to come and learn what works best for you guys. Currently, as far as the board members go, I had set up an email for all the boards so that way we don't run into open records laws. So every board member has an email, and I can communicate through that email as far as sending things out. I do ask them not to respond back to me as a group because I don't want to break those open records laws, but it gave me a way to be able to push something out. Now, with this current school that I'm in, I learned that the emails doesn't work for them. So I've had to go to texting them because that's what they all liked. So I've adjusted my technique, and I've went to a text message as a group, and I just send out, okay, here's what's happening. I just want to make sure that you're aware so that you get a phone call, you kind of have an understanding that there was something that happened in the school, with being smart about what you say. You can't put everything out there because you got to be careful on and protecting the board, and you have to also protect the student or the staff or anything. You know, there's got to be that protection in there too. So communication is always a key, and it's always tough. My big thing is I think getting out and being visible so that they understand my door is open at any time. And not only just having my door and sitting behind my desk, that's not always the answer. It needs to be getting out and walking through and just asking, hey, how are you doing today? And I think that's a big part on me to make sure that I'm starting that. And that's, again, that goes back to how I lead, is because if I'm not doing it myself, then how can I expect my staff to do it? And by me getting out there and just asking that simple question and really try and lighten somebody's day and brighten it up, if I can empower somebody and make them feel good about themselves, they're going to do that and continue to move and not even know it. So the more often that I do it, the more often they're going to see it. And through repetition, it's going to continue to build and improve on communication.
Thank you.
All right, next question. Do you encourage participation of employees in any district decisions? If so, what process do you use?
I think that it's important to have all employees and to be involved in some of those processes. And don't get me wrong, you got to really decipher about how you're going to listen to it. Input is great because that's where ideas come from, is all the input. Now it's my job to decipher how do you break that down. Should this be included? Should this not be included? And making sure that everybody understands that, you know, I'm here listening, but at the same time, you have to understand that it may not always be taking effect, because there's a lot of things that we have to take in the picture of this where, you know, somebody may come in and say, hey, this is a great idea, we should be doing this. And then I'll turn around and come right back and say, I agree with you, that's a great idea. But at the same time, have you thought about this person or this group that it might affect differently? And then they'll, oh yeah, you know. So the more input that you get, the stronger that decision is going to be. The other thing, the reason I like to do that is because if you have staff input and you have community input and you have backing already before the decision is going to get put out, it really makes things easy to push things forward. So being able to listen and be involved is important.
Okay. How have you worked collaboratively with other agencies and businesses to create partnerships in your community, such as a community college, non-public schools, or government agencies?
Currently, I guess the mayor of the town here, I've worked with her quite a bit on, just like with graduation, for an example. We were looking at doing an outdoor graduation, which would have closed down some of the streets, and being able to have that open line of communication and talking with her, that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't able to communicate and talk with her. It's important to be getting out to all those different meetings, the city council meetings and all those type of meetings. So how do you build those relationships? Getting out and making the phone call, getting out and actually knocking on their door and sitting down side by side with them and having a conversation. I'm not afraid to get off my tail and go out and see somebody, because a face-to-face means a whole lot more than even picking up the phone. Now, this day and age, we're getting to the point we don't even pick up the phone. We just type an email. We're getting more and more distant, and it really helps create a bond between the different groups if we're just going to do emails all the time. That's where I think and we're getting missed a little bit, is we need to be able to get back to that personable issue and that personal side of things. So me getting up and going over to those offices and actually being present. I know one of the things, another idea, just to kind of give you an idea, we're 2 different counties here for our busing, and the second county was having a meeting about the roads. Well, I showed up at that meeting, and they actually were taking some of my input because they wanted to know, as a school perspective, their own school district wasn't even at that meeting, but I was. And it really helped them open up their eyes to say, oh, wow, I got buses that are going on these roads and they're struggling. That's why I guess it's important for me to get out there and actually be a part of those different activities. Got to be careful though, because you can be going to meetings all day, every day, and that's the part you have to really decipher. Is this an important one that I should be at, or could I send an email to make this a little bit quicker? Those are all important things that you have to, there's a lot that plays into it. And I keep talking about all these different things, but ultimately it's hard to talk about it for me. I'm one that I like to show you and give you the, hard creep, this is what I'm doing, but it's hard for me to explain it. I don't know if that makes sense. So I apologize if I'm not explaining it quite well, but I'd like to, I'm a shower, I'm not a talker. Even though I'm talking all the time.
Thanks.
Next question. And there's a few parts to this one. Have you ever run a bond or levy referendum? If so, was it successful? And what was your role and what did you learn from the experience?
Okay, I'll be honest with you, I have yet to have to. We built an egg shop here, and at that point we were very close to having to run a bond referendum. But then what we did was we looked at it and we said, okay, is this something we really want to do as a bond referendum, or is this something we could do in-house? And when we had somebody else being the general contractor, it was okay to, we had to run a bond referendum. So we didn't, the way they got around it and the board didn't want to go that direction, that was their choice. They chose to have me be the general contractor. So I was the one lining up everything. And with my past experiences, it worked out great that way. We fell underneath all the guidelines that were needed. Don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that we can't still get those inputs and everything, but it did help with eliminate the major expense. So as far as a bond referendum, I have not. But as far as building projects, yes, I have been a part of building projects. So,
thank you.
Mm-hmm. The big thing with that is I don't want to scare you away, because that's all an educational piece. If I don't have it, I know if I had to, I could probably pick up the phone and and say, Jerry, I'm struggling with this. What kind of input could you give to me? And I'm sure Jerry, because we would have a conversation, or whoever that neighbor was, they're going to say, okay, here, this is the input that you need to do. You need to do these things. I do know that when you're working with bond referendums, you really need to be getting that idea out into the public. If you don't get it out to the public and you don't talk about it, the referendum's not going to pass. The other thing is that I've learned through my education, even though I haven't had to do it, is that you really want to find the people that are really going to back you, and they're really going to go out and talk about it. Because you get some people that are going to go talk about it and you're really going to be positive about this, that's going to help you pass those referendums and bonds and all that. Sorry about that, it was kind of long-winded, but I've also got some experience of what is good things and good bad back practices.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, Brenda here. How would you conduct an assessment of the district's academic and extracurricular programs to determine if the needs of all student groups are being addressed?
I would turn to, and they're on the lower end of my screen, but I would turn right to my principals, and I would be having a meeting with them and visiting with them and talking about what can we do better to improve this. What are areas that are really succeeding? What are some areas that are not succeeding? What are some areas that they're kind of in that gray area? And I would have to lean back onto them because I'm coming into the district completely new. As an outsider looking in, I have to rely on the principals that are there. And I had heard that you guys were keeping your principals in place, and I think that is an awesome idea because of that simple fact right there. And that's the whole reason that it's important to be able to have the resource that's already been there and they're solid into their field. They're going to be able to give me a lot of input of how to improve and make things better. The other thing is after you get those ideas, you want to get the public's input too, getting out and talking about it and saying, okay, what do you think about this? What's your thoughts on that? And creating friendships out in the community is important too, I think.
There's 2 questions left, and looks like we've got plenty of time. But the question I have is, we'd like to now give you the opportunity if you have any questions you would like to ask us.
Oh, well, one is I would have loved to have been able to come down and explore, see what like rental apartments and all that kind of stuff. Is there a lot of housing available? Because I would want to live in the community. I want my daughter to be able to go to school there. Is there a lot of housing that's available in the district?
There's some housing, not a lot at the moment. It just depends. Usually when the mid-level homes are on the market, they get snapped up pretty quickly. There is a mid-level apartment complex that's under construction right now. I don't remember how many units are in it, but there is some housing in the district, yes.
Okay. I guess I got a lot of questions that probably run through my head as soon as we hang up here, so I'm going to try not to ask too many. But the last question I have is, what does the board expect from me coming in? What would you guys expect me to be looking to do? Your perspective, I guess. Just what is your perspective of a new superintendent coming in? And I know it's a struggle because you guys have been put into a really tough position, and I would try to fill that void as much as I possibly can. But is there anything else that you guys would like above and beyond the regular superintendent duties that you would ask?
I think continue on the path of trust with the staff and the community and the kids is probably the most crucial. There's a lot of good things happening here, and to prove and continue to improve, and I know that's what everybody here wants to do. I don't think anybody wants to see any immediate drastic changes right away, because we feel we're going in a good direction.
Good, good. And that's very important because I wouldn't want to make any changes. So thank you. I'll leave it at that. That's enough for now. I'm sure I'll have a lot of others down the road, but I'll try and get you off the hook this way.
Okay. Last one here. In summary, why should we hire you to be the next superintendent of the Pelican Rapids School District?
I think the big thing is that I have such a wide background of knowledge of how a school works. I think that's important to play a factor of it. The other big part of it is I'm about the kids. One thing, and I don't know if I got to really demonstrate it here in our interview, but everything that I do is extremely important to involve the kids with. I know a lot of this directions was added back to like staff or the administration or the board, but the one thing that we kept leaving out in that whole piece was our kids. Why is it? One thing you're going to get from me is if there's a big decision that needs to be made, I would want some input from some of the kids. And so maybe building either a community of students that would come forward and meet with, I think that's important, or just getting out into the halls and talking with kids. And the other thing is you're going to get somebody with me that is, I like to joke around when I can joke around. At the same time, if I have to be serious, I will be serious. But if I can get you laughing, I would much rather see you laughing and giggling than I would to have you sit there straight face and everything like that. So one thing that I will tell you is with me, you're going to get somebody that's going to have fun and enjoy yourself with the student body. As a board members, as we get to know each other, I would hope that you're going to smile and giggle a lot more, knowing that I will do goofy things to myself to make you laugh if I absolutely have to. So in a nutshell, I'm here for the kids, and that's the big thing at this point.
Thank you.
Okay. I think, yeah, we're done with our questions, so.
Okay.
We appreciate your time and visiting with us today.
Yes.
Meet you.
Thanks, Mr. Goetz.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time to work with me, and hopefully we get to continue to work in the future here. I think it'll be a great thing for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else here before we go?
Say, John, before we go, our next scheduled time is at 1:45. So maybe you should inform the public that a candidate withdrew, and then the recording can stop.
Okay.
Yeah, am I okay to leave?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Thank you guys again very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. And for those of you just tuning in here, the next candidate did withdraw. So we will be back shortly before 1:45 this afternoon. So we're going to push pause on the record and we'll be back this afternoon.
1:45.
1:45, correct.
Okay.
I'm the board chair. And before we get started, just a little bit about our district. We're a district that serves a community of about 2,500 people. The population outside of our school district is probably over double that. So we have a lot of lake property. We serve about 850 students at the moment. And we got a lot to offer, we feel. We're pretty proud of our school system. And I just want to, like I said, I'm John Carter. I'm the board chair. And I'll introduce the board members here for you.
Mike Forsgren, I'm vice chair.
Ann, you want to go ahead?
Ann Peterson, I'm the clerk.
Brittany?
Hi, Brittany Dawkin.
Greg?
Greg Larson, board member.
And Brenda?
Hi, Brenda Olson.
And also present here, we have our administrative team. We have Rudy. Say hi.
Hi, Michelle. My name is Rudy Martinez, Finance Director.
And Brian Korf, Derek Nelson. Want to introduce yourself?
Brian Korf, high school principal.
Derek Nelson, elementary principal and activities director.
Thanks. And Jerry.
Jerry Ness, interim superintendent.
Okay.
Nice to meet you all.
Meet you. First, we got a number of questions that we're going to be going over, and each board member is going to take turns with various questions. And you have an hour and 15 minutes to complete those questions. It should be more than enough time. Everybody's been doing pretty good. We may occasionally ask a follow-up question normally relating to that question. So do you have any questions before we get started?
I don't think so.
Okay, and can you hear me okay? We've been having issues with our sound here.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, all right. Brittany, would you like to start?
Sure. Briefly share your work experience in education, including your long-term career objectives, and why did you choose Pelican Rapids as a potential employer?
Okay, well, in employment history, I started in '91 as an elementary teacher. I was back in the time when there was 300 candidates for one elementary position. So I started my career in Nebraska, and I taught 3 years in Nebraska, starting in a one-room schoolhouse. So I got some really, really great opportunities there. And then upon moving back to Minnesota, I received a job in Albert Lea as an elementary teacher. And I taught 1st grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade, with my absolute love being the 6th grade group. After 11 years there, I went to Ivanhoe, and there my first year I was a 7-12 principal, and then my second and third year there I was a K-12 principal and superintendent. I did both. After 3 years, I moved to Renville County West, where I have been here now for 7 years. I just graduated, well, I'll start, I received my undergrad at Mankato State, followed by a master's degree from Winona, St. Mary's. My principal and superintendent licensure comes from University of St. Thomas. And in May, actually, I just looked on Facebook, it's Facebook official. A year ago yesterday, I graduated with my doctorate from St. Cloud State. So I have a doctorate of education through St. Cloud. Why I chose it, I love the area that you're in. The opportunities are great. I love what the successes, as I was looking through your website, the academic successes you guys have, it's fantastic. Children, so many of my children are provided for as well, so they're also going to get good education. So that's kind of why I chose to apply for Pelican Rapids.
I pause you the last minute there. You're kind of garbled and having some sound issues. So we didn't catch everything you said about the last minute of conversation. I'm sorry.
What part didn't tell me again? What I can't hear you either at that one. So
it was starting why you liked our area and where you.
Oh, okay. I would love to come there. I love the area. You guys have a plethora of things that can be done in your area. It's a beautiful area. And when I was looking at your work with your website, your academic success is huge, and bringing a family to your town, I want to make sure that my kids are going to have the same kind of academic success as well. So I was just kind of drawn to it. I like the area over there.
Okay, thank you.
I already made it.
Got to start over, Greg. We had to unmute you.
Can you hear me okay up here? Yep. Or maybe I'm down below. Can you hear me okay, Michelle?
I can, yeah. Okay. You're very faint, but I can still hear you.
This is a two-part question, okay?
Okay.
What strengths do you have that makes you a strong candidate as superintendent for the Pelican Rapids School District? And what improvements are you working on to be a better superintendent?
Okay, some of my strengths, I'm a very loyal person to my district and to my students and to my staff. Once, upon being hired, I'm all about you. and I'm very, very loyal to the district. I'm also a very visible person. I am out in the community. I want to be in hallways. I want to be in lunchrooms. I want to be in classrooms. And I want to be a part of everything. You know, we're going to live there. I want to be a part of the community as well. I try to be more proactive than reactive. So I am able to kind of look ahead a little bit and have those conversations about, you know, what's coming down the pipe. What should we be looking at? How can we be a forerunner in what we're doing? What things can we bring to the district if we even need to? You know, I would say I accept challenges head on, and I love a good challenge. I don't run away from them. I'm very strong in finances. And I would say my biggest strength that I have is I'm a collaborator. I like to work together, especially with my cabinet. Decisions, I think a lot of decisions should be made collaboratively so that everybody's on board and doing the same thing. Not to confuse staff, not to confuse students, and not to confuse the community. So those are some of my strengths. I would say one of my weakness, or something I continue to work on, is I'm a risk taker. And what I mean by that, I don't do it recklessly, but if, you know, it kind of goes with that looking ahead. If I see something and I research it and I learn about it and I like to do it, I jump in sometimes. And sometimes I have to tell myself I have to back off and take it more step by step, because sometimes I have people following me and sometimes I don't. And so having to guide myself a little bit more carefully about what I'm jumping into is a big one. I think something I can always work on is communication. That is huge, and it seems the more I give, the more opportunity there is to give more. So I'm always working on that. One of the things that I spent last year researching is how to better myself in conflict resolution. Not only if it's about me or to me, but conflict resolution when it's with staff to staff or parent to staff, or, you know, any 2 or 3 or whatever group of people there is. I'm always looking for better ways of being a de-escalator in a situation. Understanding people a little bit more, understanding why there's a conflict and what can be done about it. And I would say that the greatest thing that I continue to work on is I'm always very hard on myself. Because I accept those challenges, I always try to find an answer. And sometimes the answer is not there, and it's just something you have to work through. And I'm very hard on myself if I can't find an answer to something. So those are kind of the things that I'm working on to improve myself as not only a person, but as a professional as well.
Thank you, Dr. Mortenson.
Can I ask one follow-up question pertaining to that? Who would you consider in your cabinet you had mentioned in your response?
Well, right now I have a couple different things I look at. I do what I call stand-up meetings, and I do those weekly. And what the stand-up meetings are, they're with the business, the HR, transportation, grounds, custodians, secretaries. Right now I have my dean and my principal. And, you know, we have a weekly stand-up meeting, and it is exactly what it says. Is we stand around and we take turns and we talk about what's going on that week. And then after I have that meeting, then I meet with my admin team, who I also look at as a cabinet. Sometimes my curriculum instructor is part of that, and sometimes my technology coordinator is part of that as well, just depending upon what the nature of the conversation is. But everybody plays a part, and I always try to, every week we get together and have a conversation about what's going on that week, what needs to be done, who's taking care of it. but I do a stand-up, and then I also do an admin.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Brenda here. How would you describe your management style, including how you determine what kind of decisions or responsibilities are delegated to others?
Okay, I feel I'm a very democratic leader, and by that I collaborate. I do not believe that every decision that is made within a school district is mine. In order to get people to be a part of your team, you have to listen to them, and you have to ask them questions, and you have to heed their decisions as well. Because I am a collaborator, a lot of decisions that we look at, we try to all be mutually agreeable on it. It just helps a little bit more with gaining buy-in, if you want to call it that, of what we're doing and moving everybody forward in the same direction. Could you re-ask the question one more time so I can make sure I have it all?
Yep. How would you describe your management style, including how you determine what kind of decisions or responsibilities are delegated to others?
Okay. When we're working collaboratively, before the end of the meeting, we always try to make sure we know who is doing what. I try to look at people's strengths, and I use their strengths to determine who I'm going to ask to do what. I will never ask anybody to do something I won't do myself. There are just some things that belong in certain roles. For instance, you know, a final decision will probably will come down from me. That would be my role in certain things. Sometimes I'm going to support, or most of the time I'm going to support my principals and delegate the building stuff to them. And you know, it's just all going to depend upon what role they play and what situation we're talking about at the time. You know, if we're talking about a curriculum, we're gonna be talking about to the people who are part of the curriculum conversation, and then we're going to work through the research. We're going to investigate everything we have to investigate, and then we're going to bring a collaborative decision.
All right. In light of Dr. Richardson's passing, how do you keep all staff involved and motivated while keeping morale high? What steps do you take to achieve this?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question again? I missed out on part of the first part of it.
Yep. In light of Dr. Richardson's passing, how do you keep all staff involved and motivated while keeping morale high? What steps do you take to achieve this?
One of the things we did last year is we did what we called an employee engagement survey. And we took it out to all of our staff members, and we had multiple groups. So we had an office grouping, we had a paraeducating group, we had an other group, and then we had the teachers, an elementary group and the high school group. And we did this employee engagement, and we brought in an outside consultant. They walked us through the process. And what we found out is we found out what people were happy about, what people were not happy about. It gave them an opportunity to give their opinion without it being scored, as far as nobody knew what they were saying. It was all anonymous. Able to work through things, and we spent the year this year, up until COVID, I'll tell you, meeting with these individual teams to discuss how things are going, listening to what the problems are, what they want, what's not going so well, what can we still improve on. And we've made some changes in our building to help with the motivation and the trying to keep a positive culture. Some of the things that we do, I do what I call a soup with the soup. And those are little outside parties that I throw for the staff. And and engage them and coming on over, and we just have a good time. We just get to know each other personally. You know, just learn about each other more and more. Then a couple of things we've done this year as well is we have the chosen one, and that chosen one is they get a parking spot for a week, and we draw that every week. We have numerous potlucks. We have a recognition board. We put TVs in our staff lounges that portray positive things that are going on within the town or within the district. And we just keep asking those questions, and we keep finding opportunities for us to meet together and be a group as a whole. Not every decision we make people are happy about. We already know that. But the employee engagement survey allows them to tell us that and maybe give us some suggestions on what they would like to see to move us forward. And they also pick out things that we don't see as admin.
Thank you.
Involvement and visibility in both the school district and community is important to the success of the superintendent and district. Provide us with examples of how you will be involved, visible, approachable, and accessible in our school district community.
Okay. Again, in the school district, I want to be in classrooms. I want to be in the hallways. I want to get to know who kids are. I want to be able to relate with staff on a one-to-one basis. I want to be in those lunchrooms. I want to be a part of everything that I possibly can. If there's a fun pet fest, let me be a part of it. If you want me to, ask me to be. I'd be more than happy. You can guarantee that all of the home games, as long as I don't have another meeting, I always am at all home games. I need to be there to support the kids. That comes from living in a small town. They get to know that they can trust you. They can come and talk to you when they know that you are there for them. So as far as the school district is concerned, you're going to see me out and about a lot. As far as the community is concerned, again, I'm out and about a lot. When I moved to Renville, I became part of a group called Revitalizing Renville, and I was actually one of the very first people on that committee. And what that committee did is it gave us kind of a beautification of our town opportunity. And we were trying to find things in the community that the kids could do, how we could tie some things to the school, what things we can just be proud about in Renville. And a couple of the things that we came up with for the kids is we did a fall festival and a spooktacular. And that allowed kids to, we opened up the school on that Saturday, and not only was there activities downtown, but then we also brought them into the school and did a big old haunted house for them, and how we could get the community, excuse me, get the community and the school to play partners. That was something we did. Another thing we did is we started a group called the CIA, or the Community Improvement Alliance. Now this group is formed by myself and our school facilities team, the mayor,